Greetings! Welcome to The Line. I am your host, Forrest Valkai, a man who desperately needs a haircut, and I am joined today by the incredible, the kind, the handsome, the strong, the brave, the true, the Jesse Jerdak.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for the incomparable welcome there, Forrest. My goodness, I also need a haircut, not on my head.
I hear you. I'm not going to ask for elaboration either. I'm going to let the audience fill in which part of Jesse's body is currently bushly. It's an exciting day today. We've got a lot of cool things going on. I'm back in the States, and this is like my first show that I've done since returning, and I've got several more on the line this month as well. For anybody who wants to know, I'm doing this right now with Jesse, and then I'll also be on tonight for the line, the Sunday show after dark with Matt. Matt will be hosting, and I'll be co-hosting on that one. And then tomorrow at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, which is the best standard time, Jesse and I are going to be right back here again. We're going to be doing the Skeptalk tomorrow. So like, tune in for that. On this show, we're kind of quick and we kind of get through calls, but on Skeptalk, we can really ramble and get in deep about our feelings. And then we've also got Chewed Gum coming up. We've got The Hang Up coming up. We've got TACIS coming up. We've got a bunch of really cool stuff with a bunch of really great hosts all for us this week. I'm not going to be on any of those. But you can see me right now and tonight and tomorrow. You can see Jesse and I together again. So check those out. Watch those shows. And if you want to call into them, call into them. If you are a theist or a creationist or somebody who has questions about a life without God, or without religion, if you have other things, this show has been incredibly notoriously progressive, and so if you're a transphobe or a homophobe and you want to talk about some stuff, let's talk about some stuff. The number is 720-619-2288, or you can use the link in the description to dial in via the web. Call us over them internets. But you got a double dose of me and Jesse coming up today and tomorrow, and I'm really excited about that. I think you out there are probably excited about that as well. And I also want to give a special thank you to Jesse, not only for doing the show with me, but for fucking dropping everything and doing the show today. We had a little mix-up, and I literally called this guy like 90 minutes before we went live and was like, hey, what are you doing today? And why is it this show with me? And
I was lying in bed at the time.
It's great. Jesse's the best, and I'm proud to know you, my friend, and I'm happy to work with you always, and I'm just excited to have you here. And while we're talking about how great you are, people should go watch Jesse on this show that we did called Roll for Initiative. I just got this new high quality t-shirt in the mail today. It's with our new 4K logo. Episode 10 just came out, and episode 11 comes out on Wednesday. And it's going to be great. Episode 11 has one of the craziest. It shouldn't be too big a spoiler to say it has a build in it, and it's probably one of the craziest builds I've ever seen on anything ever, on any show like ours. We broke some seriously new cool ground, and you got to go check that out. And we, in those 10 episodes, by the way, we have raised. I did the math just before the show started to see where we're at. $13,448.50. That's how much we've raised in just 10 episodes. And if we divide that out, that's 1,300. I don't know why I used a calculator for that. That's $1,334, a little more than that per episode that people have been sending in. And all of that goes to Doctors Without Borders, who are the ones on the ground saving lives right now in Palestine, in Ukraine, in Sudan, in Yemen, in Congo, and in other crisis zones all around the world. You can help save lives all around the world by watching Roll for Initiative and by donating Doctors Without Borders through our links. And that's a super cool thing that you can do. So with that, Jesse, do you have anything else you want to say before we roll in and start taking calls?
No, man, I'm excited about the calls today. I have been an atheist for a little over a decade now, and I hope somebody can cure me of that with their inescapable theism and sound doctrine.
That would be, you know what? I would love to hear just the sound doctrine. Because we haven't heard that so far in my years of doing shows like these. But I tell you what, guys, the number is 720-619-2288. If you're a theist, a believer, a Christian, a Muslim, a Hindu, a Jew, if you're a person who believes in these things and you want to call us and tell us about why we should believe the things that you believe, or just justify your own beliefs, that's your number, that's your time, this is your opportunity. Give us a call and tell us what's up. And with that, we are going to jump into our first call of the day. We've got Matthew, pronouns he, him, calling in from Orangutan Hemorrhoids, wants to explain that God wants us to know him. Matthew, you are on the line with Jesse and Forrest. How are you doing today?
Hi, Matthew.
Hello. How are you guys?
So good.
I'm having a great day, my dude.
Awesome. So, so it was a little delayed, so I don't know if you guys read my my comment or whatever before coming on, but basically, I see the title says, does God want us to know him? And I believe he does.
Okay.
He is. I hear a lot of atheists say, like, well, if God knows, if God is so smart, he knows what will get me to convince to believe in him and all this stuff. And, at the very least, hopefully that comment would be a little bit less used, because I want to explain how God does want us to know him, but he wants people that are repentant, people that are humble and wanting to submit themselves to him. We see this in different places in Scripture where people will come to God, or like people will come to God, and the apostles or the preachers will say, hey, look, God wants you to repent. He doesn't want you to just, believe so that you can escape hell, basically. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Yeah.
So I've got a million relevant questions right off the bat, but before we get started, I just want to make sure I understand. You mentioned the Bible, so I'm assuming when you say God, you are talking about the Christian God of the Bible, yeah?
100%.
Okay, and is there a particular denomination that you'd like to espouse, or you just like blanket, like if anybody who reads the Bible should come to the conclusion that we're talking about here?
Well, I think first of all, I think denominations are sinful. We shouldn't have denominations. That's the work of the flesh. But no denomination.
That actually,
I think anyone, and anyone, even an atheist. So no denomination, but and I think an atheist or anyone can read that and understand what is being said there.
Sure. Okay. Great. No, that actually answers a lot of questions. Exactly the answer you gave and the way you gave it tells me a lot. So that's great. So I just I want to start poking holes in just some things that I have questions about. Jesse, do you have something you want to start with first? Because I worry that mine will be a bit long-winded.
Yeah, no, I hope yours are long-winded, Forrest. I like it when you're long-winded. People like your long winds. So denominations being sinful, that's not even your point, but man, if we don't want to address that today, at some point, I hope you call back, because I would love to talk about that one.
I'll call back on Monday, Lord willing, if you want me to, because I know you guys are here on Monday, so
yeah,
we can talk about denominations being sinful.
Yeah, let's
Monday.
talk about that tomorrow. Denominations are sinful. That's you're going to make some other believers angry with that one, and that's okay.
Probably.
We make them angry all the time for free. You're saying that God wants to be pursued outside of just escaping hell, outside just to pursue a relationship with God to avoid punishment. That's distasteful to God. I would, that tracks with everything I was brought up to believe. I was a longtime believer. I was a youth pastor, a music pastor. I was training to become a senior pastor when my faith kind of fell off the deep end, because I found personally that the deeper I studied and the more I studied, the more truth I sought. That's when my faith actually began disassembling itself. What you said there is exactly one of the things I used to say from the pulpit all the time, is that God does not seek just this superficial transactional relationship, if you will, with us. But it is my understanding that, at least according to the scripture and according to our beliefs, at the time, we at one point shared beliefs, Matthew, that the transactional relationship was still sufficient. Do you believe that?
The transactional relationship is sufficient?
That was my understanding, and I've read the Bible cover to cover a handful of times myself, and like I said, I was studying to become a senior pastor in the either the Church of God or the Assemblies of God. And while yes, a truer, deeper relationship was always advocated for, the just scraping by, the just getting out of hell relationship was also acceptable in my denomination. Do you think that is a thing, or do you think that if people are just trying to get out of hell, they're allowed to have it?
There's no scripture that teaches just scraping by will do it. If anybody wants to just scrape by, they're going to have a sad day in the day of judgment.
I agree. And at least that the Bible doesn't say that. However, that's what most Christians have, is this, like, because most Christians, we live in a country of Christian nationalism, which preaches a doctrine that is very contrary to what the rest of the Bible would state. So they don't really practice anything inside the book. So do you think that most American Christians are kind of damning themselves at this moment?
100%. Even Jesus says many will come. And this is what I find interesting about Christianity. Christianity could have been a wash. Jesus could have been false about this, but he bears this out where he says, many will come in my name and say, Lord, Lord, but I will say, depart from you, workers of iniquity, I never knew you. And these are not atheists. These are people who call themselves Lord, Lord. Maybe these Christian nationalists you're talking about.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that framework. I appreciate that. I bet you Forrest is just riddled with questions right now. But I wanted to establish that. Oh my God, that's not even written in English. Good Lord. Let's go, Mr. Valkai. Matthew, thank you for clarifying for me, buddy.
Yep.
So I have a handful of questions, but they all kind of center around one major theme. So I'm going to ask a couple of things, but it'll be pretty obvious what the point I'm trying to get at here is that, you say that God wants people who are already repentant, people who are trying to be good people. What if that person is already a good person without belief in God? What if they don't believe in God and yet they are doing everything right in besides that?
They don't need God then Jesus says he's only come for the sick. If you're doing everything right and you don't need God, then you don't need God. I mean, now I don't believe that that's necessarily the case. I don't think that there are anyone out there like that, but if there is, like, I don't mind changing my mind, like I'll say on the day of judgment, right? So if there is somebody out there, then by all means, they don't need God.
Okay, so it's okay to be an atheist as long as you're a good person. It is works that matter more than faith. Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah, but I don't believe there is an atheist out there that is like that, if that makes sense. I think
Sure. No,
what I'm saying is
fine.
that, yeah, please.
Okay, so I just want to make sure I understand that. And then I also want to poke at different religions have different moral codes. They have different traditions and like what is considered acceptable. So like if I was speaking to a particular breed of Muslim caller out here, I would say that you have to have a woman wearing a hijab or a burqa or something like that, and like that's this kind of thing is actually what's moral. Whereas I'm sure as a Christian who's just reading the Bible at face value isn't gonna say that like it's important for me to cover someone in a cloth bag in order to is that fair to say?
To a very high extent, yes.
Okay, cool. So basically what I'm hearing is just a very complicated form of Pascal's wager, where you're saying, I have the correct moral code, and it's important that people follow exactly this kind of specific moral code, and God wants people who are already doing that, and so you need to do these things, behave this way, repent, and all the things. Because, like, otherwise, like, I alluded to a minute ago, you could just be a good person, and you don't need it. But you're saying no one can live up to God's, expectations. They need him for forgiveness, and they need to be following this particular way of doing things, when at the end of the day, any other believer could be saying the same thing about their moral code. Is that fair to say?
So let me clarify something, is that the key is to open the door is humility, right? Because God teaches you how to do all the right stuff, right? So you know how to do everything right and then accept him, and then you're doing everything right, then you're good. is that you have to be humble enough to say, hey, look, I'm a sinner. I cannot do these things. I want to do right by you, and I need to know what this. I'm sure you guys heard this many times. Like recognizing that you're a sinner, and saying, I need to be righteous. I cannot do this on my own, and I need God. That is where the humility part comes in. Once you have that key, you can open the door, and God can work His what we call righteousness in you.
Right, but wouldn't more people then do that if they knew that God was real in the first place? Like if somebody knew for sure that God was real and that this was actually the moral code of the universe, and it wasn't just everybody with every different faith all saying the same thing, wouldn't then it would be more likely for people to say, like, hey, clearly there's something going on that's serious here. I now need to look into this moral code. I now need to figure out what's going on. I now need to change my life in these ways. And then they would become repentant, and then God would like them. So you're an atheist, I'm assuming, of course, right? You guys are atheists on the show. Extremely.
And you've heard about the God of the Bible, and he's Richard Dawkins said, megalogical maniac and all this stuff. He's a very bad person, right? Slavery, all that stuff.
Sure.
Right. So I know right now he's a cultural Christian, but we have we have all these different things, right, about God, the Bible. So let me ask you, and I've heard, and you might, like, I'm expecting an answer, but you could give me a different answer. If the God of the Bible was real, that we represented it, would you worship Him?
No,
absolutely not.
Right.
No, 100%.
Exactly. So when people see this God of the Bible, there's exactly that thing is that many people, if they're honest, they're like, man, I don't want to do, like, for example, the God of the Bible does not, you asked about being transphobe and homophobe and all this stuff. The God of the Bible does not want homosexuality, right? So a lot of people say, well, we want homosexuality, so we're going to do the thing. I don't care if, you say you're going to save my life. I want to do this instead. So that's kind of the idea, if that makes sense. So many people, to answer your question, many people should do that, but they don't because of their own reasons.
Okay. But just to draw a bad comparison, admittedly, but a comparison, like there are still people who choose to break the law in our country today, despite the fact that we know that the government's real and we know that the laws are we know what the law is, and yet we're not super respectful of it, and we're just like, this kind of sucks, I want to do something else. That still happens, but most people can kind of fall into the culture of saying, hey, this is best for everybody. So if people knew that this God was real, you'd still have people like Jesse and I who are, either because we're just generally recalcitrant, or because we've actually studied what the Bible says and what this God believes, and we're like, hey, fuck this dude. For some reason or another, there would be people who still choose to do a different thing. But by and large, wouldn't more people then say, hey, this is actually a standard that has been set up, and there actually are consequences to the standard. I'm going to choose to live this way now because I know that's real. And it's not just another street preacher shouting another faith tradition at me, telling me that I need to follow whatever they're saying, and I have no justification to believe that.
So you'd be surprised. So and Jesus teaches this in his Gospels, or in the Gospels. He says, light has come into the world, but men hate the light and cling onto the darkness because they don't want to be corrected, basically. A lot of people, especially if you see in this day and age, since like 2012 for some reason, a lot of people hate being corrected, right? People get corrected or get offended so easily nowadays, even for just proper instruction. So it's the same thing. I think it's human nature, and this is the difference between human nature and divine nature. The human nature does not like to be corrected. Even for myself, as a base human without Christ, it's hard for me to accept correction. If that makes sense.
So let me try asking a different way really quickly. It's just like, if God wasn't real, if I could somehow prove to you that God is not real at all, would you then go out and be gay or rape and murder or steal or anything else like that? Or would it be enough for you to say, all right, this is going to hurt people, I'm not going to do these things? Besides being
right now, because of what I know, obviously, no, I wouldn't go out and I would stay a believer. I would stay a Christian, even if God didn't exist. Even if right now I would still be a Christian because I know that it's profitable for my life. Right.
Right. So you would follow the framework of morality.
I couldn't answer that question, but before I became a Christian, I couldn't answer that question, to be honest. So I'm not sure if the point is helpful there, but you could be right, you could be wrong. I don't know. I don't know what I would do. Before I was a Christian, I was pretty much a wretch. I mean, I wasn't like killing people or I just wasn't righteous. I was doing my own worldly human being stuff.
You were being a human, and you were figuring out your own life, which is a good thing to do, in my opinion. Jesse,
an interesting thing. Do you mind if I jump in real quick? So Matthew, I was raised in the church, and I don't live any differently specifically, other than I do feel like I lead a more moral life now, a more ethical life now that I have given up on the idea of a God. But like my lifestyle hasn't changed. You know, I happen to be heterosexual, but if I was gay, I wouldn't feel bad about that. I do feel like I'm more loving, more welcoming, and more kind now that I am not holding on to these biblical ideals of what is and is not acceptable in the eyes of the divine, whatever is out there. So I don't know that you know, there's a, I don't know what the exact argument is called, but we hear a lot, you just want to sin, and that's why you don't believe. And it's not that. I actually live a very chaste life. I still do. It's just that the habits I formed as a Christian didn't seem to harm or impact my life after being a Christian. So, I mean, most you and I don't know each other very well, but my rep in my circles is that I'm kind of a kind, loving person, kind of a rock for a lot of people. That didn't change after I stopped believing. So I don't think it has as much to do with, you know, us not wanting to be corrected. It's, for me, it was just that I didn't want to invest the energy in a being that I couldn't find any sort of evidence was out there, and also that a lot of the teachings within the holy document of my faith, I found contrary to human kindness, empathy, and love.
So going back to that, like you said, like, and same for me, if I was to find out, I was to do the research, maybe talk to you guys, and today you guys were like, see, Matt, God does not exist. And I'm like, whoa, okay, wow. I would still be me, you know? I even asked my wife, I was like, well, what would you do if God doesn't exist? She was like, well, I'd still be a Christian. I was like, yeah, me too. You know, that's just kind of how we are. Maybe things would change here and there a little bit, maybe, but it's just like, I don't know. So I don't think I would go out and I would still be the chaste person that I am. So maybe your Christian upbringing had some effect on that. And I don't mean that every single person is just foaming at the mouth, ready to do evil. But I do believe there are certain things that people want to hold on to, whether ideas or whatever it is, that are just like, I would follow God, but I really do not want to give this up. Or I would follow God, but that means I have to do this. And I don't want to do that. So it's not just like, let's do all evil all the time, every time, you know. It's just, I think there's just certain things that are just like, that's my line. I cannot follow God because of thus and so.
Let me try something slightly different, because I feel we might be talking past each other just a little bit here. So the moral code that this God presents is one that I don't take seriously. I mentioned a minute ago, you mentioned homosexuality, and you said, well, this is something that God doesn't want. I cannot wrap my head around that. Like, I see absolutely no harm whatsoever of someone being gay and acting out on their homosexual desires. I think that sexuality matters very little. And so, like, for me, you know, I'm pretty straight. And so just like, I act like a straight guy because I am one. And if I wasn't, I wouldn't. And like, it doesn't impact any other part of my life. It's just a thing about me that is relatively inconsequential to literally everybody except for my wife. That's, you know, and so I don't see a big deal there. If, like, with this God now coming in and saying, no, it actually really matters with which other adults have sex. There's a lot of convincing there that you're going to have to do to get me on that same side. But if I knew that this God was a real guy, and that he actually had some magic powers, and that he was actually responsible for the formation of the universe, I would still have a lot of questions. And you're right, I still wouldn't follow his rules, but I would have very different questions, and I would be engaging in a very different way. And it would become a lot more similar to a political argument where I say this candidate wants this and this candidate wants that, as opposed to, I don't think your candidate's even real in the first place. So do you not see how that would be a benefit, even if people like me chose to say, hey, I don't care? Wouldn't it still be beneficial to then have a more serious conversation about what this God actually wants and whether or not we should respect it? If we at least
I think it's still, I think we should still have that conversation. I think there is grounds for God's existence, but then again, this is what got me to believe, is that I'm not in charge. I mean, I'm not even 2,000 years old, right? I'm not in charge of how the way things can go, right? I'm not going to be arrogant enough to say, well, it should go this way. And if it does go this way, then I'll believe, and then I'll entertain the conversation. It's like, look, I haven't lived for that long. I don't know how the universe works. We are trying to still figure out how the universe works. So I'm going to go with what I know to be true of this God and follow him. And honestly, even still today, I had trouble with miracles. I didn't come in for the miracles. I read what Jesus was saying, and I was like, okay, I accept you as Lord. I'm going to do that. And then that's when my life started changing. Like, I used the key, humbled myself, and then that's when my life started changing. So what I'm saying is that I don't think, respectfully, I don't think you're in charge of calling the shots, neither am I. So even if we think it's a great idea, even if we think it's a great idea, that may not be how God wants it to be done, yet he can still want us to know him.
I just don't think that God is calling the shots either. I don't believe that there's anybody calling the shots. I reject it because I don't have evidence of that. If I had evidence of a God that was calling the shots, again, like we already established, I would have words for him. But again, like I don't feel that it is arrogant or abundantly overconfident to state that I don't think that God knows what he's doing, because I don't think God exists. So it's not that we're being arrogant in the assertion that we are leading a more moral life than what the Bible portrays and projects. We are living the best life we know how with the information available, and we're trying to live the most according to the most true thing. We're not, we're not trying to follow biblical doctrine to live a moral life. We're just trying to be moral. It's not about arrogance. It's about accuracy.
Well,
that's kind of what's getting to me. Is that, like, it would be a lot more productive if God was real, even if we knew for sure that some people wouldn't follow him, which I think is reasonable to assume. I think it's still beneficial to him to show that he exists, because otherwise we're talking more about whether or not he exists than we are about whether or not what he's saying is good. You happen to have shows like this where we do both, and we say no to both. But like more often than not, if someone's an atheist, they're not going to care what the Bible says. Whereas if someone were a theist, they might at least give it a second thought. Like there are a lot of philosophers that I strongly disagree with, but I've taken the time to consider their ideas, because at least I know that they're a real person that mattered, that had something interesting to say.
Yeah. So the arrogance, what I was saying, is where we say, hey, this is how you should do it to get us to know you, versus like, oh, well, I don't know, I don't like you or anything like that. Because there are things that God does that I read in the Bible that I don't like, right? There are things that God did that Abraham didn't like, but he was still a friend of God, right? And so it's not necessarily about, well, I don't like it. Even if I don't like it, there are things as a child that your parent does that you may not like because you're a kid, and you're like, why would you do that? You're not supposed to do that. And it could be, if you have children, like you can open up a package of yogurt a certain way, and they'll be like, why did you open it up that way? It doesn't make any sense. And you're like, look, I understand, but it does make sense. I understand what you're saying. So I think it's the same way with us, where our knowledge is a chasm between our knowledge and God's knowledge. So we may think that God should do something a certain way, but it is wiser for him to do certain things another way, And so that's what I mean more about the arrogance of just saying, like, you should do it this way, God, because this will be more beneficial for you. And he's like, yeah, I've been running this show for a bit longer than you have, so let me handle this one.
A minute ago, you said that you're not thousands of years old. You don't know too much. You haven't been here the whole time. You don't know how to run things. You don't want to run things. Politics is the business of running things on a societal level. It doesn't seem like a huge logical leap to say, based on what you're saying, that God's been here the whole time and he knows how to run things, that you would then apply that to a political life as well. Are you in favor of theocracy too? Because God knows everything and he said in a book how to do things, and therefore we should run things that way? Or do you think that
100%? Let's not say theocracy. I would say I'm more in favor of monarchy, which God is the king, right? Not like other people mucking around saying, oh, God said this, let's rule because God said this because we're saying so, going back to the whole denomination thing, right? But
if God doesn't show up and can't prove that he's real, then that's not going to happen. So it would be theocracy. It would be people reading the Bible, interpreting it, and then passing laws based on that interpretation.
Well, we that's why we have what we have, right? I'm very thankful that I live in a secular nation. I don't think the USA should be a Christian nation. I don't even think it was founded on Christian principles, as many people would say it is. I don't think it is. But I'm glad we live in a secular nation. I'm glad to be an ambassador of the kingdom of God. I know God is my king, and that's kind of how things run in my family and my home. But I see myself as an ambassador of the kingdom of God here on earth, in this secular nation, which I'm glad to be in.
Got it. So I guess the last thing that I'll ask, because like that's a whole other can of worms that I'd love to talk about tomorrow when you call in. But something that I'd like to end on here is just the problem of this concept in the first place, that God wants people who are repentant and all those things, and that we need this, we need that for the sake of heaven and not going to hell and all that, right?
I mean,
so why not?
The point is, you're not trying to escape hell. You know what I mean? Like, you're not doing it to escape
but
hell.
But that is the consequence of doing it wrong.
That is the consequence. Yes.
Right. So like my question is, why that? Like that would be the last thing that I want to ask today, is just like, why can't God just forgive? Why does he need a threat of hell? Why does he need a hell at all? Why does he need any of that? Why not just love his children and say, hey, I understand that you're flawed. I made you that way on purpose, and you fucked up, and I love you anyway, and there will be no punishment or there will be no pain. And why not just be a kind and loving person that way?
I mean, obviously the easy answer is because he says so, but per our conversation prior to the question, but for me to give a stab at the answer is to be that God is just in his point of view, right? Because I know you don't agree that he's just. But God is just in his point of view, and that's how he chooses to kind of exact his justice. Okay, people are doing wrong. You go to this place. This is where you're going to go. I would say hell is definitely a good deterrent. But it shouldn't be the end all and be all, if that makes sense.
So it's there's a carrot and a stick, and you think that both are necessary, even when the stick is grossly disproportional to the crimes that is being used against.
That's because, just to simplify an answer, because I think the carrot and the stick are not all the same thing. Like, I like the idea of heaven, but I'm more excited about the idea of living righteously and being profitable to my neighbor. That's my carrot, and my stick is not being, or my punishment is not being profitable to my neighbor. If I was a wicked person, that would be my own punishment, and I would hate to be that person. I love to be a righteous person.
Agree. I'm the same way. I agree wholeheartedly with
Fantastic.
that. So then why, if that's good enough, do we also need, but if you're good, you get to go to a theme park in the sky, and if you're bad, you experience conscious torture and fire for the rest of eternity? Why is all that necessary, and how is that in any way justifiable?
Like I said, to me, my main focus is these things, like we talked about, that we both can agree on, that we enjoy. The pie in the sky when you die, I guess, sounds great, but I believe that's how God decides he wants to do it. To me, if we have a deeper, longer conversation, it makes sense. Like I said, hell is a good deterrent. And that's what I'm shooting for. It's not even
now, though, is I don't want the answer to just be God's doing it that way, so I know it's right. I'm asking you seriously, like, you said you have a wife. Do you have children?
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything that your children could ever do for you to then want to hurt them, like physically actually hurt them? Not like a little spanking, but like actually like torture them, like set them on fire?
No. However, there are things that they can do that would make them, I mean, I don't have a hell to go to, right? But let's say a punishment that they may have, like not being able to enjoy video games for the rest of their life, or until they grow up, or whatever.
You can't seriously draw that comparison, though.
One is lighting somebody on fire.
I'm not saying I would do that. That's what I'm saying. I really can't draw that comparison. So what I'm saying is that with God, I'm not God, right? So with God, and I'm glad you asked that question, because it'll help you answer it for you better, is that with God, that is just what happens. That is the consequence. Like, gravity is going to be gravity, right?
I get that, but I'm asking if that's justifiable, because gravity isn't a conscious agent. God supposedly is. So if there's nothing that, if you love your children, and therefore there's nothing that they could ever do, I don't care if your children are mass murderers, you would never want to torture them because you love them and you know how horrible that would be. And yet God supposedly loves us and is like, yeah, but if you fuck a dude, I'm going to burn you for eternity in the basement.
But
I love you, but I'm still willing to do these horrible things.
Yeah. I would allow my
children
children to go to
draw
jail.
That comparison. Yeah, but you can't
No,
draw that. We're not talking about any earthly
it's
punishment.
Definitely not a
here.
one-to-one. Yeah.
No.
It's definitely not a one-to-one.
Because even in the worst possible prison on earth, where there is all sorts of human rights violations, at least you can fucking die and leave that jail. If for this God, death is only the beginning, and you have eternity to be punished. It is grossly disproportional to the crime committed, most of which the crime just being thinking wrong. And so what you're saying is you love your children more than God loves us, because you would never allow them to be tortured in the way that God is willing to do on an infinite scale for all of eternity.
And for most Christians, we established that earlier as well. Like, he's going to torture most Christians according to the doctrine.
Yes.
So, I mean, he's going to do this to, and Christians, if he's going to, Christians aren't even the majority of humanity. So he's going to do this to most of humanity, which is, it flies directly in the face of John 4:8. And if you don't have that memorized, that's fine. I don't either. I just kind of knew it tangentially. So I looked it up on the side. I was cheating. But it ends with the words, God is love. And that is so contrary to the notion of torturing, let's say 90% of your children for the rest of time. And that's one of the things that drew me away from the faith, because I know, Matthew, that you are smart enough and you are honest enough and you are ethical enough to accept that that is not an act of love. And that is not a person that is love. So either God is wrong or John 4:8 is incorrect.
Well, no. So here's the thing, and this is why, this is like, I was just going to say this is one of the reasons probably why you do not like God or would not accept him if you knew he was real, for this reason. If hell was all the thing, like you explained, right? You would be like, no, I'm not trying to follow that God. So going back to that point. But the point is that I am not the arbiter of love. I'm not the arbiter of what God's plan is. You can say that I'm more moral than God because I love my kids more. And morality is subjective anyway, right? So that's your opinion, you know, and maybe it's a shared opinion among many other people, right? But even if you said that doesn't change anything. I don't think I'm more loving than God. I hear what you're saying, and it may sound like that, but then again, like I said, I've only been here for about 35 years. I've not been here for the 2000 or for billions of years that God has been here, billions of years that Earth has been here. So I'm you know what I mean? I can't answer that. I guess if that's what you're asking. I'm like,
right. So over and over, you've said, I understand you don't want the answer to just be that's because it's that way because that's the way that God's doing it, and yet that has been your answer. And I understand you're trying to be, you're trying to be succinct here, which I appreciate. But I want more than that, and I think that you can do better than that. And so, Matthew, we've got to move on. We've got to move on to the next call because when we're about 30 minutes, we got a short show. But tomorrow we got a longer show, and you already said you wanted to call back in.
Yeah.
One of the things I would like you to call back in and tell us is how exactly you square the circle where any kind of eternal torture any kind of torture for your children, willingly torturing children, is the same thing as love, in your opinion. I would love to hear that more.
Sure. It may not be the same answer you want to hear, but I'd also want to talk about the nomination. So hopefully, Lord willing, I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.
I hope so too, buddy.
The nominations too. Take care, Matthew.
Yeah.
Thank you, buddy.
Bye-bye.
I appreciate Matthew's call because, like, even I know it's not the screaming clickbait that people like where you get real heated and mad. What Matthew is espousing is disgusting, but he was honest about it, which I really appreciate. And so, like, to talk about that a little bit further with him, I think is going to be good. So tune in tomorrow for Skeptalk to hear more about why Matthew thinks that it's a kind and loving thing to do to set your kids on fire, but only if you're Jesus. Our lines are full, and so I'm going to jump into another one so really quick as fast as we can. Before we do, I just want to remind everybody that the number to call in whenever there is a time to call in is 720-619-2288, or you can call in using the web description, and you can also use the links that Kalasia789 is probably loading up right now to put into the chat to go check out Roll for Initiative and donate to Docs Without Borders, because we've already raised almost $14,000 to save lives all around the world, and you can watch us do that. And if we raise enough money, Jesse and I have already planned like 2 other seasons that we want to do, as long as we're raising a lot of money. And I've already planned out 2 other really cool characters to play. One of them involves these, and one of them involves these. And you can tune in and watch those characters come to life, but only if we raise enough money to save lives in Palestine by donating to Roll for Initiative. With that, we're going to jump right into Giddy. Pronouns he, him, calling in from Untrained Testicles, who says that he cannot defend atheism and science, doesn't have the knowledge to debate anti-science and politics stuff, and just has some questions about rhetoric. This might be a very short call, might be a very long one. We don't know. Giddy, you are on the line. How are you doing today?
Giddy.
Hi, I am. How I am doing? I'm busy fangirling right now. Hi, Forrest. Hi, whoever
Hello.
else is there.
It's Jesse.
Hi. Okay.
How are you?
I may forget that, but
That's okay.
Okay. Whatever. Let's use. Oh gosh. Whew, okay. So,
You're doing great.
Thank you. I hope I never do this again. Anyway. My goodness.
So you said you don't
yes.
have the knowledge to debate anti-science rhetoric, and you're looking for new rhetoric. What specifically are you talking about? And also, I'd love to know a little bit more about, you're saying you can't defend atheism and science, and it says you're calling as a theist. I want to know about that too, but that's two separate things. So what do you mean by better rhetoric? What are you trying to talk about?
So how do I say this? I try my best to practice I'm Mormon. I don't know if you could tell because I'm from whatever you said about Utah.
Undescended testicle.
Oh yeah, that one.
Untrained.
Anyway, so
I'm sure they're descended. They just have not been given proper discipline.
Send them to hell for 1,000,000 years. They'll teach them.
Exactly.
Sorry, Giddy.
Okay. No, it gives me time to process my fangirling. Anyway, so I have so I try to practice a faith where like a faith and science balanced approach to my religion, and I just have this. I have a family member that is staunchly. He's versed in some. Gosh dang! Now I can't think of the words. He's staunch in some anti-science and religiously motivated rhetoric that I have to hear about, and it's unpleasant, I'll say. So I want to defend, like, a lot of it is anti-science, transphobic, etc., and I want to defend my views and the science of things. But on YouTube, I just look up, the history of whatever the evolution stuff. I can't. I don't have the debate skills or science knowledge base required to debate someone who is versed and rehearsed in anti-science rhetoric.
Okay.
So
you have this person who's espousing a bunch of anti-science stuff. You send them links to things to people that in videos and whatnot that explain what you're trying to talk about, but you don't know how to have the conversation for yourself when you need to and when you don't have a link to send them. Is that a fair summary of what you're talking about?
Close enough, yeah.
Okay. I would say the best thing that you can possibly do is just learn how to ask good questions, because you don't need to know every single thing. Like, that's the most important thing when learning science, is that you'll never know every single thing. Even if you were the perfect worldwide expert on a topic, the whole point of science is to learn more about everything, and that every time you answer a question, you get 5 more questions about that thing. If you how does this process work? Okay, well, this molecule does it. Well, then where does that molecule come from? There's a million questions left. And so if you can just learn to ask good questions, like probing questions, how do you know that? Learning what a reputable source is, and learning to double check and fact check things, and learning to say, okay, like just a little while ago, I was hanging out with some people that I actually care about, who told me that we were not around each other often, and they're Christian. And they said, well, they found the Ark recently, so that's evidence for me. And I pointed out, okay, well, they've found the Ark. They, quote, quote, have found the Ark about 50 times now. So which time are you talking about? And they said, well, it was recent. So I just looked up Ark discovered in the past 5 years, and I found a couple ones from like 2013 where they said that there was this place in Turkey where they found the Ark. And sure enough, upon just looking up the name of the site and a couple of things, I found like 5 or 6 resources. There's a bunch of stuff from like Christian News and Bible Times and JesusFanfart.com and whatever else. But like once I found like some stuff from like Popular Mechanics, which is like not a scientific source, it's a popular science publication. It's not something that you're going there for like details, but it's not complete BS. And I was able to find a little bit more details about it. And it turns out it was a site that it's just a natural rock formation that looks kind of like a boat or a vagina. And the like for the past 20, 30 years, every 5 years or so, another creationist group says it's the Ark, and it gets big news headlines, and then they go away. And so like I didn't know anything about that. I didn't know anything about what he was talking about, but I was able to ask just, how do you know? What are you actually talking about? Let's try to find an article about it. And then going through that article, I can look up that site and find important things about it. I was able to type the name of the site into scholar.google.com, and I found several papers published about it that referenced like, this is a popular site because people think it looks like the Ark. But in fact, this is what it is. This is how this rock formation happened. I was able to find, stuff debunking Christian claims about it from the past several years just by asking probing questions. So I think that's the best thing for you to do, Giddy, is just if you want to take a course on it, you can, but there are plenty of online resources you can look up about how to ask good questions, courses in journalism and courses in science that'll teach you how to like probe into what these people in your life are saying and figure out right in real time if what they're saying makes any kind of sense. And maybe that'll also benefit them by fact checking them. You know what I mean?
Okay. In that case, quick follow-up question. Seeing that you guys host this show and debate callers all the time, how often or what responses do you get when debunking callers? Does that reinforce their biases? Do they look elsewhere for information and facts that support their claims? Yeah. How likely will this just enforce this problem?
It depends on how serious they are. Yeah, Jesse, it looks like you were about to say something too.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that it's not necessarily about the caller, because there are a lot of viewers of The Line and shows like this where people may be questioning things. So I am not necessarily trying to impact the caller, because sometimes people just have their minds made up. But I am trying to say the most true, factual, and accurate and emotionally vulnerable and honest thing possible, so that there are people that were, let's say, like me, about 20 years, maybe 10, 15 years ago. I don't know how old of an atheist I am. It doesn't really matter. But there are people that are questioning along their journeys, that are looking for information out there. And if I can be open and vulnerable and honest and receptive to what people are saying, that's going to impact people. If the caller changes their stance on things, cool. And I'm here for that as well. But for me, it's the fact that there are people watching, probably silently, like really going through some shit. I was really going through some shit. And I when I was going through my deconstruction journey, I wouldn't have called a show like this, but I sure watched a lot of them.
Okay, I think I'll listen back on all this and take notes. So thanks for the homework. If you did mention your deconstruction journey, I do want to eventually get to. I think we established at the beginning of the conversation that you wanted to talk about me as a Christian, and would be related. Would there be enough time now, or should I call later?
There's plenty of time. Yeah, we can do another 10, 15 minutes on this call. That's fine.
Okay. Well, okay. Yeah, okay. So I guess second question, and I need to describe my flavor of Christianity for this question to work. So I'm going to take a deep breath and let's go for it. So
sure.
To me, sorry, I'm not Okay. All right. You got this. You've been practicing English for 33 years. You can do this.
You got this.
You got this, Kitty. I believe in you, buddy.
Yeah. Okay, that makes one of us. So, yes, to me, scripture is hearsay, not history. And for some, that is heresy. And even though it's hearsay, I still want to hear what it says. So, to me, faith can never be knowledge, because once I know that it's true, it is not faith. So I don't make choices based off my faith. The best I can do with faith is to say, I think this, but I don't know. I think this, but I don't know, I'm pretty sure are just the first steps to the scientific method, which is a better place to start. My question is, is being this kind of Christian a good place to stay?
No. It's a good place to start. So like, when you say this gets kind of similar to the scientific method, so to speak, sure. I that's kind of like a hypothesis. A hypothesis, an educated guess. I think this is what's going on based on my understanding of this topic. I think this is what's happening. But a hypothesis by itself is meaningless. It's the hypothesis-driven scientific method is what we call it. So the hypothesis is the first step, or it's not the first, but it's one of the first things, but it is still just the beginning. You have to then follow it up with experimentation and with testing and checking and asking questions. So that doesn't mean that you have to go out and like do an experiment to answer every single question forever, but it does mean you need to be checking, and you can't just stay at that point of, I think this is what's happening. You need to go find a reason to believe that that's what's happening. So like, is it a good place to start? Absolutely. Is it a good place to stay? No, because then you're going to end up just continuing with religious belief because it sounds good enough when there are much better answers out there. So I guess my question to you, Giddy, would be, do you care whether what you believe is actually true, or do you just care that it works for you?
It depends, because I would... wow. Repeat the question so I can think it again.
Yeah. Do you care if the things that you believe are actually true, or is it more, or do you just care that they just work for you? They're good enough for you to get by without having too much mental strain. They're just fine. Or do you care that they are actually true things, even if that means they're unpleasant?
I care that they are true, but I just have I don't have a very strong grasp on my mental capacity, because I'm very ADHD and I'm sad for fun. So I don't like existential crises. So I'm taking this piecemeal by piecemeal. And for the most part, at the moment, I don't see anything currently wrong with me being Mormon, but not enforcing that in any way that is factually unfounded, which all of it is factually unfounded. So I don't make choices off of it. It's not affecting anyone but me, as far as I can tell.
It
I
is
don't
affecting
make choices.
It always is.
Is it?
It is affecting other people. Yeah, because your beliefs inform your actions. So what you do is basically is absolutely, built upon what you believe. You say you're a Mormon. Do you vote?
Yes, but
when choosing who to vote for and what to vote for, wouldn't your voting be influenced by your Mormon principles and belief system, the things that you think are true and good, because it says so in the Book of Mormon?
Well, so how do I say this with words? So I, okay, let me just a bit more while I think. Okay, so I'm not a very good Mormon. I don't think Mormon when I'm in the voting office place. I just try my best to talk to people and the sciences of things. I'm subscribed to your channel, and I've called the TACIS and chewed gum. to learn more about these things. And I think, for the most part, I cannot recall my morality Mormon based. I really don't think about me being Mormon.
Let me try something different then. Do you tithe? I think it's like, what is it, like 10% supposed to be to the Mormon Church?
I used to, and then I stopped. I don't now because I'm broke. That's why I'm calling. Otherwise, this would probably be a $5 super chat on the other shows.
Okay,
but no, I don't.
Would you if you had the money?
Good follow up. Yeah, but there would be questions, and I at the current moment I would question what happened for me to get to that place again.
How many people's lives are going to be benefited by you asking questions, as opposed to how many people's lives are going to be negatively impacted by you giving money to this church, which hoards money billions of dollars away and actively lobbies against LGBT rights? And do you see, even in that scenario where you think that your belief is benign and you think that you're keeping to yourself, that's one example of a way in which, because of your belief system, you are still actively hurting people around you. And even if you didn't tithe, I guarantee we could find plenty of other things that, and even if it just comes down to it, Giddy, and even if you could prove to me that you're not hurting anybody else, I still think that you're being hurt by it. And that matters to me because you also matter. And so, like, having any kind of a supernatural belief, in my opinion, is at least a little bit destructive, especially one centered around the Christian faith or any of its tendrils like Mormonism. Yeah, that's a harmful thing that's doing harm to you. And I appreciate that you said that you don't like existential crises, and that is, in all fairness, kind of the business of getting a science education, is going through a set number of existential crises per semester. So that's fine. If you don't want to do that, that's cool. It's not for everybody. But like, deconstructing this religion isn't something that's just beneficial because it's not like we're getting any feedback or any like big numbers on this channel. Every person who deconstructs, we get a bonus or something like this. It's just that, like, when that happens, it I think makes you a better person. It makes you more useful to the people around you. And more importantly than all of that, it protects you from further harm. So if you want to say, like, slow piecemeal deconstruction over the course of a very long time without learning too much about science, that's still functional. You could still totally do that. You just need to ask serious questions about what you believe and why you believe it. Do you have a good reason for believing in this God? Do you have a good reason for believing what you believe about Mormonism? Do you have a good reason for doing the things that you do in your day-to-day life that are based on your religious belief? Or is it just good enough? And the important caveat of the question that I gave you a minute ago is it better to believe things that are true even if they're unpleasant, even if it means dealing with an existential crisis, even if it means knocking yourself and your whole existence down off of several pedestals? Wouldn't it be better to know the things that you believe are real and that the way that you're living is as beneficial as possible to as many people as possible, at least as far as reasonable? Does that make any sense?
Yes. It's actually very close to a question I asked on Chewed Gum last, I remember.
Perfect.
I don't know if I have time to ask your opinion on that same question, but it would be tangentially related. Can I ask that question?
Jesse, you're muted. You son of a bitch. How dare you?
I am muted. I was fiddling with an owlbear miniature while I was listening to Giddy. Can I jump in real quick, Giddy?
Yes.
Yeah, go.
Okay, so man, I hear your heart in all of this, and it's Forrest and I won't be able to demonstrate that you're doing a lot of harm to anyone besides yourself here. But for me, and I think for Forrest as well, I'm going to speak for Forrest because I'm his boss. That's enough. You matter enough. And that's enough for us. And I think it should be enough for you that the faith is causing you undue harm, whether but I recognize it because I was on the same path, right? Where it's an uncomfortable thing to confront our belief structures within ourselves, because if this isn't true, then we have to start thinking about what is. And I've been there. It's hard and it hurts. And I gotta tell you, listening to you talk, buddy, you're already doing it. You're already on that journey yourself, because you just said, I'm not a good Mormon in this regard. I actually think you're the best Mormon, because you are questioning the dogma and the doctrine and the political machinations of a toxic and vitriolic and predatory movement, cult, if you will. That's going to win me a lot of bonus points with the Mormon crowd. Sorry, team. But you are worth fighting for. And someone as thoughtful and considerate and as kind and compassionate as you, when you are being hurt and injured by these beliefs, that's my call to action, because I can hear it in your voice, how thoughtful and compassionate you are. And you are brilliant, by the way. Like I've got ADHD as well. You and I are on the same bus. And a lot of times people will tell us that, our mental capacities are not up to par. Your brain is just doing a lot of things right now. I guarantee it's just weighing, like, how am I sounding to these people? I hope I don't sound silly. And you're probably worrying about your bills, because you said you might be unemployed right now. So your brain is just constantly juggling things. So you sound great. You're doing great. You're already deconstructing. You just already are. We get these people all the time where they're late in their faith journey and early in their deconstruction journey, and they think that they are believers. But if you're not following the tenets of your organization, what are you doing? You're already deconstructing.
Okay. Let me just address what I'm thinking with my ADHD. This call is weird. It just like there was mentions of testicles and vaginas, and these are conflicting times. They're confusing times, and you matter. This feels like the talk. I don't. What? I don't. Yeah, I'm uncomfortable.
Welcome to
I don't know.
Welcome to the line. That's what we do here. We make things strange, and we subvert expectations. Giddy, I want to second everything that Jesse said. I think that honestly, you're already on a good path, and I hope you call back in, and I hope you ask more questions. And like, if it's all the same to you, I would really appreciate if you'd call back in and talk to either Jesse, me, or both tomorrow or at some point, and just try to pick apart like actually what your belief system is. Because you mentioned a minute ago, like you at the very beginning of the call, you said that like you think that the Bible is hearsay, not history. That's a huge claim. And there's a lot that we have to talk about there. I want to talk about your belief in God. I want to talk about whether or not the God that you believe in is worth believing in, and whether or not they're a good person. Like there's a million things I'd love to dig into with you, and it sounds like you're already doing that. And so like I don't know if it's something you want to do. I just want to offer us as a resource to help answer those questions, and depending on which host you talk to, in as kind of a way as possible. You know what I mean? Especially, I'm pretty sure Jimmy Snow was once a Mormon and has never been excommunicated, and so is still a representative of the Mormon Church as a person who has done the drugs and fucked the dudes and like all of the things. He's still the Mormons love him. They don't excommunicate him, and they believe that so you can talk to Jimmy Snow, I'm sure, and he could like help out.
I already called him. I'll probably call back, but do understand that if you pick up, and I'm gonna fangirl all over again, and I don't want to embarrass myself.
You're just fine, man. I appreciate it. Okay, we're gonna move on to the next thing, but I appreciate you calling in. I hope that at least part of this has been beneficial to you. You learn how to ask really good questions and learn how to be a little science journalist guy. And also keep on questioning your faith and keep on questioning what you believe and why. And feel free to call us anytime if you want to talk about it. All right.
Okay. Bye.
All right. See you later, Giddy. Bye-bye. What a nice
sweetheart. Yeah, dude. I'm fangirling over Giddy.
Yeah. What a nice guy. I really appreciate the honesty, and I appreciate how I appreciate the brevity with which the last two callers have been able to kind of explain what they're actually talking about, and then we can get right into the meat of, okay, here's why I don't like what you're saying, rather than having to drag out a long, big bullshit conversation. With that, we've got a bunch of other callers on the line. The lines have been like full this whole show. We have been jam packed. So I'm going to jump right in and keep on moving. Don't forget, by the way, if you like TTRPG stuff, especially building things like making little minis or just seeing minis and sets and terrains and things like that being built, check out Jesse Jerdak's channel, because he does that and it's really cool. So if you go watch him, I should be pointing this way, I think. If you go watch him, he's got a lot of cool videos and he's making more. With that, we're going to go on to... Oh, is there? There it is. Okay, we've got Jackie, pronouns he, him, calling in from myceliar...
Ooh.
So I don't want to... I was going to default to scrotum, but I feel like that's an easy one. Mycelium snails. We're talking about mushrooms turned into the shape of gastropods here. We're talking about eye stalks on mushrooms. It's a bad time. Jackie was calling to talk about the contingency argument as an evidence for the existence of God. Jackie, you are on the line with Jesse and Forrest. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Never had a bad day.
So basically, what I would like to be presenting is what's known as the contingency argument, which is a variation of the cosmological argument. Some people say it's a variation of the ontological argument, but it's basically an evidence or a logical deduction that a God must exist. We'll put aside the question about the God of any specific religion, but we'll just focus on whether or not broadly a God exists. So are you familiar with the contingency argument or the proof of the truthful?
Nope. So a couple of things. You said it's a variation of the ontological argument and the cosmological arguments. Those are ones that I am kind of familiar with, but I need to be reminded. Is it worth the time to go through what those are, or does your argument stand on its own 2 feet and we can just deal with it?
The argument stands on its own. I'll just provide a syllogism and we'll see what you have to say and respond to it.
I've got my notebook.
Okay. So basically the argument you're familiar with set theory and all that?
Vaguely. Is it super important?
So basically the argument goes like this. The sum of all contingent things must be contingent on something that is not itself contingent, because if the sum of all contingent things, which is the set, is contingent on something which itself is contingent, the contingent thing would have to include in set. That's logically impossible. So therefore, whatever the sum of all contingent things is contingent on has to be contingent on an uncontingent thing. So sort of something that itself has to exist necessarily, that is not contingent on something else to exist. It is outside of the set of contingent things. And the second part is everything which has been observed within the natural universe is contingent. As say, its identity is contingent on the reformation of existing material, energy, etc., into its current identity. Therefore, because everything in the natural universe which has been observed is contingent, the sum of all things in the natural universe is contingent, and whatever it's not contingent on, or whatever it's contingent on that itself is uncontingent, is God.
So
well, Jackie,
it's just the
I'll be honest with you. I'm really disappointed. I got my whiteboard and my pen out, and you literally just gave us the prime mover argument as if it was a new thing. Like the whole argument is for every effect there's a cause, and therefore there must be one effect for which there must be one cause which is causeless. There must be one uncaused thing, and that's God. That's the whole argument. It's the same thing that we get all the time, and just with the word contingent in it 50,000 times. How is that any different than whenever a theist calls in and says the universe can't make itself, therefore God made the universe?
Well, because it's like I said, it's most people classify it as a variation of the cosmological argument.
It's not a variation; it's a different wording. It's the exact same thing. Yeah, it's the same thing.
But yeah, that's basically the syllogism of everything is contingent. Whatever it's contingent on can't be contingent itself. Therefore, the one thing that's uncontingent, would be God.
Okay, that's a bad argument, and it wasn't. It was a bad argument before you changed the word, cause to contingency. It's the exact same thing. That's one that's been talked about and debated and argued and debunked and just like a million and one times.
What's the flaw in the syllogism that I provided?
Jesse, do you want to go first? Or you want me to?
Yeah, I'm going to go first because I'm not as smart as Forrest, and so for the
nonsense.
other, it's okay. That few people are. It's weird. So for the lay people in the audience, I'll jump in. For me, the big flaw in this argument is that everything must have a cause. Everything did have a cause. So what caused everything? Right. That's the whole crux of this. And for me, it's just not good enough to say that it was God. It's not good enough to say that it was a European man with a beard that hates it when dudes kiss each other. And that's what it always boils down to. I recognize that we're dealing with a more esoteric, broader interpretation of the prime mover argument here. But it's just because we may not know exactly what caused everything doesn't mean we get to insert something. So, Forrest, why don't you jump in? Because that's just where my untrained brain was taking me.
Yeah, for me, it's just like it's one of those like kind of platitude, like a truism where you just it's if you want to say, well, there has to be something that didn't have a cause, something that didn't have a contingent a factor, or whatever like that, and therefore it's God. You could literally just replace the word God with literally anything else, anything at all, and you would have the exact same argument, and it would mean the exact same nothing, because a logical syllogism that like kind of uses a faulty premise, number one, because we don't know about like the beginning of the universe or anything like that. But even if we did, and even if that was true, that's not actual evidence. That's not actually anything that's testable or verifiable. That's not anything that actually demonstrates the existence of a guy that is named God. For all we know, this universe could be a dream. For all we know, this could be, we could be a brain in a vat just thinking that we're experiencing it. It doesn't solve the problem of hard solipsism nor anything else, any of these other ridiculous, non-falsifiable things. It doesn't close the door on any of the serious logical problems out there. It's just saying, well, stuff's here, so somebody put the stuff here, and we don't know that that's true or necessary, and it certainly isn't a compelling argument.
Well, do you disagree with the claim in the syllogism that everything which has been empirically observed and within the natural universe, its identity is contingent on other things?
Yes.
So what has been observed whose identity is not contingent?
I'm not saying there is one thing that has been. I'm saying it hasn't been demonstrated that. So I suppose what your thing was, everything that's been observed has been. My issue is that we haven't shown for sure that to be the case. As far as we know, damn near everything has had a cause, sure. But when we're talking about like the whole universe by itself, we don't know what caused the Big Bang. We don't know where this thing came from. We don't know what that's all about. There's some really cool new data and new arguments that are coming out from the physics community about instability within tiny quantum fields that make things like the beginnings of a universe possible. If you ask me, I'm not a physicist, I'm a biologist, but like you're talking about a universe coming from nothing. I don't know what nothing is. I've never seen a nothing. I've never run tests on a nothing. To ask what came before the Big Bang doesn't make any sense, because you're talking about the Big Bang as the beginning of all time and space. So to say that there's something that caused the universe and to exist, some contingency outside of the universe, would be to say that there was something that existed in a place that isn't at a time that wasn't. And I don't know what that means. So like you're opening up 50 new logical cans of worms in order to justify the belief, not just in any vague, like, creative factor, specifically a god. And you were careful at the beginning of this call to say that you're not going to pick any one particular god, as if that's really significantly narrowing it down. The fact that it's a god at all, and not any million other bazillion infinite possibilities of a thing that could create a universe, technically, theoretically, in a dream that I had one time, you're still choosing something completely arbitrarily and then saying that it is necessarily the beginning of creation, and that makes no sense.
So just to reiterate your words in a simpler form, just clarify. So
Sure.
You would agree that most things which have been observed are contingent, or their identity is necessarily caught in a causal relationship. But you don't believe that's true of everything which has been observed?
I don't know for sure if it's true of everything that's been observed. And I can say for sure that it isn't, that I don't think that it's true of everything possible, whether or not that things that have not been observed as well. I don't have a reason to believe that. I'm not saying that's not true. I'm saying I don't have a reason to believe that.
Yeah, and the second point, fair enough. And the second point you brought up is, well, whatever caused it, how do we know it's God? I mean, I don't understand what entity that is necessary to say its identity is not contingent, that could create the natural universe and temporality. We wouldn't classify as some God, even if it's not the God of specific set of scriptures.
Why would we assume it's an entity?
Universe is... Yeah, exactly. What if the universe is closed instead of flat, and in fact, at a certain point, we'll have a regress and it collapses back in on itself and starts over, and that's been going on for all of eternity. It's just been Big Bang and then Big Crunch and Big Bang and Big Crunch, and there's no such thing as the beginning of time because that's just been going on in perpetuity for all eternity. And so the non-contingent contingency thing is the previous universe. That makes as much sense as what you said.
But then the natural universe would be contingent on itself, and if the natural universe is contingent and the natural universe is contingent on itself, then the thing it's contingent on is contingent. So it would have to be contingent on something else that's contingent.
No, you said that there has to be something that's contingent on itself that has no prior contingency, and that is God. I'm saying, what if it's the universe? Why can't I just plug in universe for God and say the universe has no beginning, it has no creator, everything else has a creator, has a beginning, has a cause, but the universe does not. It makes as much sense as you saying there has to be something without a cause and therefore it's God. And God doesn't have a cause. I can just say the universe doesn't have a cause.
So you would agree that the universe isn't contingent, even though the constituent elements of it, namely matter and how it iterates in the universe, is contingent in terms of the relation of identity, but as a whole, it's not contingent?
No, that's not what I think at all. That's just the argument that I'm giving you as an example as to why your argument is as meaningless as what I'm saying. I don't think that's true, but I do think that just saying I don't know where the universe came from, therefore God, is a bad way of thinking. And that is exactly what you said.
Okay. Yeah, I would have to consider it. I mean, this is so. Yeah, if you'd like to know more about this specific argument, just before I wrap up,
I don't.
It's not a good argument.
Anybody else does either. It's just a bad argument because literally all you did was state the Kalam cosmological argument with a new word in it. It's not a variation. You just plagiarized another bad argument. So, like, if you say
this was actually founded by Avicenna.
I don't care who founded it. It's a bad argument. If it was a good argument, it would have changed some minds in the several hundred years it's been around.
Okay, so I'm trying to understand. So what you're saying is it's just too speculative to claim the universe isn't contingent?
No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying all your argument is that everything has to have a cause, and we can assume that the universe does as well. Sure, I'll agree with you on that. I don't agree with you on that, but for the sake of argument, I'll agree with you on that. And then you're filling in and saying there must therefore be something that does not have a cause. And I certainly don't agree on that. I have no idea what you're talking about with that. And then you're going a step further and saying, and therefore that thing must be God, which is another huge jump that I don't agree with you on. Even if I agreed that the universe had to have a cause, I don't think that it had to be something without a cause. And even if I could say there must be one thing that is without cause, I don't agree that it's a God, because there could be a million different things. And you're just picking one type of thing and saying it's this guy. And it just so happens to be the one in the religious tradition that you happen to believe in. I know you didn't mention it in this call, but we both know that's what you're saying. So, like, you just so happen to have been born into or found in your lifetime the exact interpretation of the exact religious text, which happens to put you in line with the thing that created the universe, which is another ridiculously huge claim, being very specific about things that you don't know about. And you're trying to make this syllogism here as if it justifies making a lot of huge leaps about the nature of reality. And I don't understand why you're comfortable doing that.
And it leads to something
it does.
I'm going to jump in real quick,
Jesse,
buddy.
please.
Please. That's the problem is that we start here, and you're like, so everything is contingent upon something else, and therefore a non-contingent agent must have caused everything, right? And let's pretend that we give that to you. What's the next stage in this discussion? And eventually it leads to, and now women can't vote. So the reason we don't want to give this fucking ground is because it's a more important argument at large than just the start of everything. Because the start of everything, if the start of everything is the guy in the book that I like, and the guy in the book that I like says that gay people can't kiss each other, then all of a sudden it becomes a greater problem. So, which is why I like these questions, but it's also why I refuse to accept that the start of everything, the cause of everything, is the guy in the book that you like.
Well, I believe there's secular arguments for why same-sex relationships are immoral or bad for society at large.
I'm sure you do, and that's why we could smell it on your conversation from the very first words. We're like, we know where this is going, and honestly, I would almost be willing to entertain a talk about that tomorrow on Skeptalk. Depending on how problematic it got. But I got to tell you, man, the Kalam has been whooped pretty bad, and this is just the Kalam with the word contingent in it a lot. And I am no expert on these things, and for me to be able to poke holes in it is pretty embarrassing because I'm not good at this.
Okay.
I would love to hear your discussion about homosexuality tomorrow. If you can you call back in tomorrow for Skeptalk and talk to us for a long time about that?
We'll see. If I could direct you to a resource that has sort of influenced me. So beyond that, St. Thomas Aquinas has been the best, but not just St. Thomas Aquinas. I'd recommend you check out Dr. Stephen C. Meyer.
I'm not going to, for fuck's sake, Stephen Meyer. No, absolutely not. Yeah, I'm not interested in where this came from because it's a bad argument. I'm certainly not interested in what Stephen Meyer has to say because Stephen Meyer he just makes one bad argument on repeat as if it means anything. His one bad argument over and over is you can't have computer code that writes itself, and computer code can't be randomly changed to make new computer programs. Therefore, DNA had to have a writer, and DNA can't mutate to create new animals, so evolution isn't real. And all of that means specifically the Christian God of the Bible is the only option for the beginnings of the universe and beginnings of life. It's a terrible argument. And I have a video on my channel. You can go on, my channel and see. I've got a couple of videos about him. The most recent one is about him and also the rest of the Discovery Institute and also Prager University, where I show he says he goes to this science conference and met this great evolutionary biologist who admitted that evolution doesn't make any sense. And I wrote to that evolutionary biologist, and he explained in a huge detailed letter about all the things that Stephen Meyer said wrong about what he just takes scientists out of context and claims that people are saying things that they're not. He's like Ray Comfort in a lab coat. It sucks. So I don't care what this guy has to say, and I don't care who other people are saying this argument. It's a bad argument, dude. And at the end of the day, I think Jesse hit the nail on
the reason I brought up Stephen Meyer was I just brought him up because he's a big expert on it. I saw him on Jordan's podcast. He sort of was influencing me in terms of the TOEO option argument.
Yeah, Stephen Meyer is an expert on how to make crappy apologetics videos. That's what he does really, really well. That's it. So, if you're talking about, trying to make this a serious discussion, I would recommend leaving him out of it because it's like bringing up Michael Behe. It's like, why? Why would you waste your time tying your argument to somebody who has been so thoroughly excoriated and just, thrown aside by the entire community of people who give a shit about this stuff? And I think what's most important is what Jesse said a second ago, is that at the end of the day, your beliefs lead somewhere. Case in point, Stephen Meyer, who's a part of the Discovery Institute, whose whole job is to publish nonsense about evolution with the end goal of establishing a theocracy. That's their actual goal. So, it leads somewhere. It causes more harm than just the argument itself. That's a problem. So I hope that you call in tomorrow, because we're going to move on to another caller. But I hope you call in tomorrow and tell us about your secular arguments against homosexuality, because I bet you anything. I'll put up $100 here to a charity of my choice that your secular arguments for against homosexuality are some Jordan Peterson level bullshit that don't stand up to any sort of reason.
I actually really like Jordan Peterson.
We can tell.
We know.
I'm going to move on to the next call, and I hope you call in tomorrow and talk to us about some other stuff.
Okay. Bye.
All right.
Thanks, buddy.
All right.
Bless his heart.
Yes, bless his heart. We've got a bunch of other calls on the line. However, we do have a couple of lines open right now. Lines have been absolutely packed, but we had one person drop while Jesse was on, which means we actually have 2 lines that are open at this moment, only for theists who want to call in and talk to us about their theism, because we've got about an hour and a half left in the show, and I want to try to get through as many people as we can. Don't forget to go subscribe to Jesse Jerdak's channel and watch him build some cool stuff. And don't forget to head over to my channel as well and watch Roll for Initiative, where we're playing a game of Tales of the Valiant and raising money for Doctors Without Borders. We've already raised almost $14,000 in the past 10 weeks, or 10 episodes, 1 per week. Sounds way longer when I say 10 weeks. But in 10 episodes, we've already raised almost $14,000. And we've got another episode coming out this Wednesday, and I think you're going to like it. And you best fucking believe I'm going to be talking about that more on Skeptalk. We've got Rose. Sorry? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was just excited about Rose. Let's go.
Okay, yeah. We've got Rose. Pronoun she, her. It just says calling in from Africa. Africa is a really big place. And I hate that it's somewhere in there. The country of Africa. Rose is a deist who wants to talk about miracles and also might have a question about Homo Naledi. I don't know if I'll be able to answer it, but we'll try. Rose, you are on the line with Jesse and Forrest. How are you doing?
Hi, Rose.
It's real weird. Can you try talking again?
Hi, can you hear me?
A little bit.
I can hear you. There's like a really weird, like, electronic rumbling sound going on, and then sometimes I get a little snippet of you.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I don't know how to fix
I can hear you okay right now. So worst case scenario, we might have to mute you while we're talking and then bring you back on to answer questions. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. Sorry
Okay.
for the whole general African thing. I am an ex-Muslim. I'm trying to be as big as possible.
Oh no, that's fine. I didn't mind it at all. I just think it's funny.
So I just want to start off. I'm an ex-Muslim. I don't know.
If I can butt in, hi Rose. Sorry, I don't want to. I'm trying to help out. If you are having like headphones in, try unplugging them and plugging them back in. Sounds like there's maybe a loose connection or something. So that might.
I don't have any headphones actually. That's not allowing me to playing through my system.
Okay, I'll just clear it up for now. We might end up having to move on, but I'll let the hosts continue. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, Rose, it sounds. I hope you listen to this afterward to hear what we're hearing, because it's bad. But can you do you have access to YouTube? Can you put in the chat maybe, and we can address it there?
Okay, sure. Give me a second.
Okay.
I'm not really able to hear Rose. I mean, I can hear like a soft voice, and then I hear what sounds like a snorkeling.
Yeah, it's very weird. Yeah, I'm gonna give her one more try, because like she's been waiting for a long time, and I really want to give her the chance. But
Same.
like it sounds like there's an issue.
It sounds like it might sound different to the screeners and to Forrest, but to me, I think I'm hearing about what the audience is hearing, and it's pretty impressively bad.
Yeah, we can't do this.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Rose. Try calling another day. It's too much for the.
Yeah, Rose, I'm really sorry. This sucks. I'm gonna put you on mute for a second just so you can hear us. Yeah, we are getting just a god awful sound, and I can't hear anything you're saying. And when I can, it's like 2 words that are super quiet. So you've been waiting online for like an hour. I'm really freaking sorry, dude. I would love to hear what you have to say. If you want, you can either type it in the chat and say, hey, yo, this is Rose, here's my question, and we'll try to address it there. Arden, do you have like anything else that you can maybe email or something like that, and we can take it that way?
Not that could really get to us in time. I mean, if you want to try to email me, arden@qanaline.com, I can keep an eye out for that.
There you go.
But yeah.
Yeah, Rose, if you will please either just type your question in the chat and make sure to indicate who you are, or email arden@qnaline.com. Is that what qnaline.com?
At qnaline.com, yeah.
There you go. And just ask your question, and then we'll read it aloud and answer it as best we can here, okay? I'm really, really sorry about that, but we cannot hear you. Have a good rest of your day. I wanted to hear what you had to say. Instead, we've got Kyle, pronouns he, him, calling in from iridescent langoustines, talking about shiny lobsters, who's a theist who wants to know why personal experience doesn't count as evidence. Kyle, you are on the line with Jesse and Forrest. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing good. How are you guys?
Hey, Kyle.
I'm doing really, really good, man. Doing really good. I also want to say that was you are our last theist caller that we have queued up right now. So we've got now 3 lines open for theists that want to call in, 720-619-2288. Kyle, talk to us about what you're meaning here, because I can give you a long lesson that I would usually give in a science class, but I'm wondering if you have something specific that you wanted to ask.
I guess my question is, if you have personal experiences, which we all do have personal experiences, how could that not count as personal evidence? Why does it automatically make it a false?
Yeah. Jesse, you want to start? Or do you want me to?
Sure. Yeah, I'll jump in, and then I'll hand the question over to you, Forrest. When I run out of cute words to say, there's a few things to address there. One, I don't think I have had any personal experiences that are inexplicable. I know that some people do or claim to, and there's no way for me to interrogate whether that's true or not.
Hey, will you
but I know that,
real quick, what's inexplicably mean?
Sure, yeah. Inexplainable. So, a lot of people are saying and take any miracle narrative out there that is just not something that can normally happen within the bounds of what we understand as the physical universe, and then that's I would call a miraculous experience. I haven't had one of those, but a lot of people say that they have. I sought them fervently as a former, I don't want to say clergy, because that's overstating how involved in the church that I was, but I was well on my way to becoming a full-time pastor at some point in my life.
I got you.
And I sought these experiences wholeheartedly, and even did my best to believe in them, even though I lacked evidence. But even let's say that I did have one of those, that doesn't rule out I could have been mistaken. I could have been hallucinating. There are so many things that the human ability to perceive our own environment is not infallible. So even
I won't even exclude the possibility that psychedelics were part of the biblical writings.
Sure.
Right.
So I took a long-winded way to say that I haven't had, because one of your premises was we've all had these experiences. I have not. And two, we owe it to ourselves. I'm sorry?
I said I'm willing to be corrected. Please correct me.
Yeah,
I'm not trying to
what
correct
he's
you.
doing.
Yeah, it's not even about correcting. It's just I'm trying to relay my experience. And you may have had an experience that I can't quantify, but I do think that when we're dealing with these large topics of religion and philosophy, and especially when the way they impact others, there's an extra step of credulity that they need to be able to pass. And with that comes our own ability to perceive reality accurately. And sometimes that comes in examining, was I hallucinating? Was I mistaken? Was somebody pulling a fast one? Because I got to tell you, man, sleight of hand is real. Forrest, did you have anything else to say on that?
Fair enough. Now,
Yeah,
can I ask what you got? Can I ask how you guys would dispute where they say religion is religion and Christianity is relationship, and that's why it differs from all others. I just want to hear what your guys' comeback on that one would be.
I would say that it's the exact same claim that's made by any other religious person in any other way. Is that like, well, there's the religions, but I know for sure that Krishna is real because I've personally experienced it.
None of us can say that, right? Now, what about the I'd rather be wrong in the end than to be wrong in the end.
That's just Pascal's wager, and it's bad. So like so let's address what your first thing is. I'll write down Pascal's wager here at the bottom of my notes, and we'll address it. Cal's wager. We'll address it here in a second. But your initial point that we were talking about was why is personal experience not counting as evidence? Jesse touched on a couple of things, but I'll touch on a little bit more. The first thing that I would encourage everybody to do is I'm going to put a video in the chat. You can check this out. There is a famous. There we go. There's a famous psychology test. It's called the selective attention test, and I'm going to put it here in the chat if anybody wants to watch it. It's a video of some people passing a basketball, and they're wearing different colored shirts, and you follow how many times the people in white shirts pass the basketball around. And you watch this video, and you see them passing the basketball around. I'm going to leave it in the chat for just a minute and let people check it out if they want to check it out while I talk. And here in a minute, I'll come back and explain why this video is important.
Okay.
The first thing that I would say about your question, why isn't personal experience count as evidence, is because, first of all, we have personal experience, eyewitness testimony, blah, 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 of just about every religious tradition out there. So if you're going to say that personal experience counts as evidence, then you must take Christianity seriously. And you also must take Islam seriously. And you also must take Hinduism seriously. And you also must take Judaism seriously. And you also must take every whatever crazy religion from all around the world. There are people who have personal experiences with Poseidon and Zeus. And you need to take them seriously and believe that those gods are real. So that sucks. The second thing is that personal experience is evidence sometimes. In certain cases, it counts as evidence. But it's not the only evidence ever. Don't ever use it as the only evidence, because studies have demonstrated that confidence in your memory does not correlate to accuracy in your memory. Are you seeing this clump of hair right here that's just sticking straight out? I hate it.
It's adorable.
Oh my gosh. Confidence does not correlate to accuracy. When people are very confident that they remember for sure what experience they had, that doesn't tell you anything about whether or not they actually had that experience.
Right.
In fact, it's like the lowest level of evidence, and there's a million different examples you can give of that. There's been plenty of studies where somebody watches a video on a screen of a car speeding through a thing and doing a thing, and then they ask a group of people who watch the video, okay, what color was the car? How fast were they going? How many people were standing around? All these important questions. And especially if it was a shocking video, like something crazy that happened, their accuracy goes down less and less. So if you're talking about personal experience with Jesus or whatever like that showing up, that's a pretty exciting, shocking thing. You're going to have low accuracy and high confidence, and it sucks. And that brings me to the video that I put in the chat a little while ago, the people passing the ball around. Like a huge proportion of people who watch that video, they can tell you exactly how many times the people in the white shirts passed the ball. They can't tell you about the man in the gorilla suit that walked through the middle of the frame, beat his chest, waved his arms, and walked off. They didn't see it, even though it happened right in the middle of the video, because they were busy counting people passing a basketball. And so that's a really common experiment that I show to my high school students. And also I've shown to, it's any good psychology class will have it. I encourage you to check it out. And the final thing is that naive realism is a thing. The very first logical fallacy that anybody should learn about. The first thing that I learned when getting my first science degree is naive realism is the idea that your senses are all you need to learn everything there is to know about the universe. At the end of the day, we are all fallible. We're all subject to being fooled. Anybody who could do the magic that Penn and Teller do today would have been considered a god 1,000 years ago, and like it would have been burned at the stake. And so, just like for that and so many other reasons, personal experience is a great thing to talk about. It is not good evidence, and it doesn't count as the only reason you should change your mind on anything, unless you're going to change your mind to literally every other religion all the time, depending on who's talking to you.
Okay, so can I ask another question?
Yes.
All right, so you guys just concluded that, there is no creator. That's like too far of a jump. I could never take that because I consider creation as evidence.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to cut you off. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I want to be very clear. We're not saying there is no God. We're saying we don't have a reason to believe that there is. So it's just,
Okay,
I don't believe it
enough.
is not the same as saying truthfully, absolutely there is not, because that would also require evidence.
Okay, hey, I'm down with that. Now, how do you guys find meaning to life? Obviously, a lot of people find meaning to life through God or religion.
Yeah. Jesse, do you want to talk about your meaning to life?
Yeah, honestly, as a former believer, I got to tell you, God is the most shallow and meaningless meaning to life that there is, and it's so sad because a lot of us as kids are indoctrinated into thinking that God is what matters, and that our children don't matter, and our neighbors don't matter, and people suffering in other nations don't matter because God is what matters. God is the most shallow and meaningless thing to attribute a meaning to life ever. I promise you, because at the end of the day, none of us, and maybe Kyle has evidence for God, but if you do, you're going to be very famous and very wealthy very soon. But to this point, no one has been able to meaningfully demonstrate a God, and therefore we have things that are tangible all around us that can provide meaning and purpose, and those should be the things that we find meaning and purpose within. So, even if you don't have family, even if you don't have friends, there are people out there that could use Kyle, that Kyle could go out there and make their lives infinitely better today. And if God is just such a hollow thing to attribute meaning to when it comes to the breadth of life.
Right.
Yeah. For me, it's the fact that I am very nihilistic in my philosophy, and I don't think that there's any such thing as real, true, objective meaning. I think that life as a whole, is as meaningless and as pointless as literally everything else in the universe. This entire planet could be destroyed in the most extraordinary way possible today, and it changes absolutely nothing for the Andromeda Galaxy. It just doesn't mean anything. So that gives me a really awesome position of getting to choose what matters to me and getting to explore the world around me and try to figure out what's cool and what's not. This game didn't come with the rule book, and it doesn't have any set wrong or right way to do anything. And so I get to explore, I get to dream, I get to be weird, I get to discover new things, I get to make mistakes and then try to correct those mistakes and fail at that too sometimes. And all of those things are important parts of the human experience. And so for me, my meaning, so to speak, if I think that even calling it a meaning is a bit reductive, but like my meaning, to use that word, is to try to use the little bit of time that I have in this world to make everybody else's little bit of time at least a little bit better. There's a lot of undue suffering and bullshit in the world around me, and I don't like that because I know what it feels like to hurt. I know what it feels like to be sad. I know what it feels like to suffer, and I don't want anybody else going through those things because people are pretty cool, and I like them, and so I want them to be happy.
For sure.
And so I try to do good things, and I try to make life better for everybody else, and it sucks and it's hard, but I think that if more people did that, things would be a little bit better. And so I try to do that, and I don't think that I'm going to be rewarded or punished in any significant way because at the end of the day, I'm going to die, and I don't believe in an afterlife. I'm just done. So I've got I'm 32 years old. Average human lifespan in this country is around 80, maybe, if you're lucky. I have used up about a half of the time that I have if I'm incredibly lucky and I don't die in a car wreck tomorrow. I've got a very little bit of time, and every second is precious. And so I'm going to do the best I can and try to make people smile and try to make my life and the lives of those around me as happy and as safe and as pure and beautiful as possible. That's the best I can give you for meaning. But even that, like I said, is very reductive.
Now, do you guys agree with the ethical teachings of Jesus, though?
No. Some of them,
like not
but
the
not all of them.
But okay, fair enough. Now, you guys were both in a faith of some kind, correct?
Not really, but Jesse was.
Yeah,
I was raised.
Man,
pagan,
what was?
So I didn't really have a structured faith.
Okay, fair. Now, what was the killer of it? What interested you in it?
Forrest, you want
Jesse
me to
has
go,
a
or do you
better
want to go,
answer than
bud?
me. You have a
Sure.
better answer than me.
I
Mine's
was, like I said, studying to become a full-time pastor. And so I was kind of just about to take that leap professionally. And I realized that I didn't have concrete evidence for anything that I was teaching people. And I was teaching people.
Right.
And at this point, like, I had to go to other um, clergy that I respected. I had a pastor at the time that was the head pastor of the church that I was studying under. And I was like, hey, have you heard God's voice? Because we tell people that you can hear God's voice. Have you personally? And this was like a junior pastor to a senior pastor. This was a very intimate and private conversation. Have you heard God's voice? And I trusted this guy, and he's an honest man. And to this day, I think he's a fairly honest guy. And he said no. I was like, well, I haven't either. So you and I, we are leading this church, and neither of us have encountered this being on a personal level that we are making not only a life trajectory, but a business out of. And that's where my faith started deconstructing itself. I was searching. The thing is, like, a lot of people make these claims that atheists just don't want God or haven't looked for God. I got to tell you, I became an atheist due to my search for God, my earnest search for God, using the scriptures, using contemporary philosophers. There just wasn't anything, and that's why my faith fell apart.
Yeah, and that's
hear you.
incredibly common. I want to point out a lot of the people that we get to call in that have deconstructed. In fact, I can even say a lot of my friends who have deconstructed. That's the story. Is like, I was looking for reasons to believe in God. I was looking for good arguments for God, and I just couldn't find any. Or I was looking for reasons to disprove things like evolution or the Big Bang or the age of the Earth or whatever like that, and I ended up finding a bunch of evidence for those things, and I couldn't justify it anymore. And so, like, that happens a lot. As for me, the story is a little bit less interesting. I was raised in a very multicultural household. The majority of my family was pagan. We believed in, like, East European witchcraft, and I believed that for a long time. And I was then at a certain point, but I was also raised around. I grew up in Oklahoma, so there's double-digit churches within walking distance of every house I've ever lived in. And also, we were very multicultural in that we went to every church, mosque, temple, cathedral, whatever around town. So I spent a lot of time at the Hindu temple, at the Hebrew temple, at the Buddhist temple, at the Catholic cathedral, at the mosque. I spent a lot of time at all these places talking to people and getting to know their ideas. And so I was effectively an atheist for my whole life, but I believed in, like, I was acting like an atheist. I believed in a God, but I kind of was like, for a long time, it wasn't like a guy. It was like the kind of pseudo spiritual, like, well, if I squint my eyes and turn my head, I can call this God and this and blah, blah, blah. And I definitely believed in spirits, and I definitely believed in angels and demons and all this stuff. And then at a certain point, I just applied the same rules of logic and morality that I do to literally everything else in my life to that, and it fell apart. As soon as I started asking for real evidence for what I believed in, and as soon as I started taking it seriously about, like, whether or not what I believed was true, or if it just made me feel good, all of a sudden I realized there was no good reason to believe in any of this stuff. And in fact, it was actually hindering my education in a lot of other ways to think of those things. And so it fell apart. And that's another thing you mentioned a little while earlier, Pascal's wager. I didn't get to talk about it a minute ago. Do you want to touch it now, or do you have a different question you want to go to?
You can go ahead and address it.
Just so very quickly, the reason why just saying I'd rather be wrong about God than to say I'd rather believe in God and be wrong than say I'd rather not believe in God and be wrong, because then I go to hell and all those things. It's the same thing that we talked about at the beginning when we talked about evidence. You would need to be afraid of literally every single hell on offer. Christianity alone has like 3,000 denominations. So you've got, you pick one, and then 2,999 other times you're going to be in hell anyway. So just like by sheer probability. So yeah, Pascal's wager sucks for a lot of reasons, not the least of which being that you'd have to convert to every religion simultaneously in order for it to actually be effective. Or you think that you can pull one over on God. You think that you can trick God into letting you into heaven by way of a logical, loophole. And that sounds kind of arrogant and shitty too.
Yeah. So, so this religious would okay. Now you guys don't believe in like a spiritual realm.
Nope.
Okay, so like
Same reason we don't have any evidence for it.
I hear you. Now, what on an atheistic point of view, what would be like a voice in someone's head telling them to commit suicide? What is that to you guys?
Psychosis. That's something that we actually do have evidence for. Is there's a lot of different things, either schizophrenia or a momentary mental break. There's a lot of different conditions. I'm not a psychologist, I'm a biologist, but I know of a lot of different conditions that can cause something like that to happen.
Right.
And the same people who would call that like a demon or something like that today are the same kind of people that also called epilepsy demonic possession a little while ago. And we learned actually that's not what that is. It's actually a pathology going on here that we can treat. And so if someone has depression, what they need is treatment, not religion.
Now, if we are to hit a whatever you want to call it, a creator, God, would you say that if God is outside of time, space, and matter, it wouldn't logically make sense with our brains to begin with?
That
No.
the statement, if that thing exists in the first place, doesn't make any sense in my head. What if something exists in a place outside of space? That place would also be space, and if they're doing things, that requires time, and if they're made of stuff, that's almost certainly matter, but not necessarily matter. So, like, just
Right.
you're answering, you're trying to answer a question by asking several more incredibly more complicated questions, and that doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah, basically the whole thing, man. It sounds like from the questions you're asking here, it sounds like this is your first time engaging with atheism in a real way. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah, because these are and this is no shade to you. I really appreciate you calling, and I really appreciate the questions you've asked. A lot of these questions are really common for people who have just never even thought, like, what does an atheist actually do? You know what I mean? And so I really appreciate you bringing these up.
Like people in Satanism, people want to automatically say you worship Satan. No, essentially you worship yourself. But that's besides the
Precisely.
point. Now,
yeah, so like, there's a lot there, and so I really appreciate you bringing these things up, and I want you to understand the whole premise here when it comes to any supernatural thing, be it God, ghosts, spirits, magic, you name it. It's just the fact that we don't have any reason to believe that. We don't have any serious evidence for that. These are positive claims that require a reason to believe in them. And Jesse and I can also tell you, this may add a layer of contrivancy to this whole thing that maybe you don't want to deal with right now. I don't know. But like, I can say for myself, and I'm pretty sure Jesse would also say, that even if you could prove this God was real, we have an issue with it, especially if it's like the Christian or the Muslim God. Like I've yet to hear a God that's been offered to me that I haven't really seriously disliked as a person, as well as saying I don't believe the thing exists. So like, there's a lot to it that's beyond just sitting here saying nuh-uh. You know what I mean? I just don't want you to think that we're just sitting here being contrarian just for the sake of doing it.
And I mean, man, I want to say that, just do you actually believe in that thing, or do you believe in it because you simply just want something to believe in? I mean, that's crossed my mind.
You talking about God?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would just believe in it to have something to believe in, because we as a culture here in America tend to value faith as some sort of a virtue. And so it's kind of just a cultural thing that people just accept that there's a God there. And if you don't, you're weird. And a lot of questions like the ones you're asking, I don't think that these should be difficult questions for a lot of people but like to say, okay, well, where did the universe come from or something? It's just, I don't know. And you can just leave it there, and that's fine until we learn something, the same way you would with anything else. It's for some reason, in this case, we tend to invent magical, explanations for things when we really don't need to.
Right. Now, do you guys hold the same definition for faith as Aron Ra, that it's believing in bullshit till you actually believe it?
That's pretty harsh, but
man, he's harsh. man.
He is. I know him. He's a. I've known him personally, and he is. And honestly, if you get me on a fiery rant, I'll be just as harsh. I would say a nicer way for me that I would say it is just faith is believing in something in spite of not having evidence for it. Faith is believing in something when you don't have evidence, because if you had evidence, you wouldn't have faith. So you want to believe something, so you just do, despite the fact that there's no evidence for that thing. And that's an issue for me.
The same definition used in biblical definition is your definition.
Sorry?
Now, do you guys believe in any of the Bible, like as factual, historic evidence or any of that?
Some of it. There's things that are indisputable, but like a lot of it is easily disputable. So it's like it's not that. Go ahead, Forrest.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I've been talking for a long time. You go.
We like your voice. We like your words, buddy. So there are accurate historical accounts in the Bible. There are some claims that are, if not absolutely dismissible, certainly difficult to prove. So does that answer your question? Like, some of the ethical practices in the Bible I think are great. Some of them I think should be dismissed with vitriol. Like how to treat your slaves, because honestly, I don't think you should have slaves. How to stone your children if they backsass you. I don't think you should kill your kids with rocks. I think it's a bad idea. I'll go out on a limb and say that.
Hey, would you agree that we are a slave to something in this life, whether it be our job, this, that, or the other, though?
No. I think that's a funny way to say that, like, shit happens, but like the reality of it is a gross oversimplification of what a slave actually is, and it kind of glosses over the real horror of slavery. And so, like, for me, I think the Bible has some true stuff insofar as, like, there was probably a guy named Jesus at one point. That was probably a thing. I don't know if his name was actually Jesus, but like a historical figure who maybe existed at that time and said some stuff. Maybe. I don't think he was unique, and I don't think he was magical, and I don't think that there's any of that. It's like saying, like, are the Spider-Man comics good evidence for anything? Because they have New York City in them, and we know New York City is real. Like, yeah, that part's real. A lot of the places in the Bible are real. Some of the people in the Bible were real. Did they say and do the things that the Bible says? Probably not. Was there actually magical talking snakes and donkeys and a giant flood that covered the earth? Absolutely not. And so for that reason, it's a work of historical fiction at this point, is what I would call it.
Now on the resurrection,
it's like Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. You know what I mean? Very real, serious situation with shit that did not actually happen with people who were real,
So are you guys more in line with the stoned ape theory?
No,
but it's a fun one. I think it's fun, but I don't think it's real.
It's interesting, yeah. Yeah, my first master's was in bioanthro. I studied human evolution for my first master's, and like, no, there's no serious. It's not a thing. But like, evolution is, just not that way.
Right. Now, let's move on to the resurrection. Like, you guys say that there is no evidence for that, but could that be later found false? Like, could it have actually happened in your guys' mind?
Absolutely. So, yeah, neither Jesse nor I think anybody else on this particular network would ever say that there's nothing that could possibly change our mind. There could be evidence. Yeah, there could be evidence for this stuff. And then I would know, if you proved to me that Jesus actually was a dude who did and said the things that he said, and was who he said he was, and actually rose from the dead and is actually like king over everybody and all these things, like, I would be the first one to sit here and say, okay, I am no longer an atheist. I am now atheist. However, am still.
Hey, that's fair, man.
But I would also continue saying that I don't like Jesus, and I don't worship him, and I don't follow him, and I don't want anything to do with him. So I would still say that I don't like this guy, but I would admit that he exists. The problem is there's no reason to believe that any of that stuff's real. Even if you look to the Bible, the four Gospels each have a different story of how the resurrection supposedly happened. In one of them, they went there and the tomb was already open. And another one, they went there and the tomb wasn't open. And then an angel came and opened it. And another one, there was an earthquake that opened it. And one of them, there was an angel inside. And another one, there were two angels sitting on the rock. And another one, the angels weren't there until the people got there and then they appeared. And one of them, the people saw it for themselves. And another one, the women saw it and then brought back the story and told everybody. And then they went to confirm it later. There's in one of them, the body was inside and then ascended to heaven in front of them. And another one, the body was never there in the first place. So if you want to talk about evidence, having 4 different accounts of the same event is bad evidence.
Hey, that is the funniest thing to me. I love the fact that atheists do more Bible study than Christians do Bible study. It's crazy to me.
It's the best way to become an atheist is to read the Bible and see that it doesn't make any damn sense. And when it does make sense, it's usually horrible. Like a lot of the Bible is evil. And then when it does say something that's even benign, it's fucking nonsense. It doesn't make any damn sense. There's a part in there with a goddamn talking donkey. And like, unless you think Shrek might have been a documentary, it's an issue, you know? And so like, just if you read the Bible seriously, it's a comedy of this character of God making mistake after mistake after mistake, and then punishing innocent people for his mistakes. It's an awful story. And unless you're really into like the Saw movies and other similar torture porn, it's not a good story.
Okay, now let's go from New Testament to Revelation.
Oh yeah,
that's not an evil story.
Absolutely, it is.
Well, when you get to Revelation, when dude's about to come judge the world, like
dude's about to come judge the world. Dude's about to come judge the world. You're absolutely right. Why is he judging us again?
Well, we wouldn't be judged if we were. Well, I don't want to use biblical lingo with you guys.
You can use it. I'm familiar with it. Go for it. Why is God judging us in Revelations?
Let me hear your take on it.
No, I'm asking you. You believe in the stuff. So Revelations, it's the end of the world. It's the apocalypse. God is going to judge the world and bring about his eternal kingdom. How does he go about doing that?
Well, I don't take Revelation literally because it was a vision, and I don't think that's how it's like. I'm still learning, so I can't give my input. I think it's a fascinating book to read. It's like Harry Potter type shit, but
yeah. So he sends a bunch of terrible destruction all over the earth. There's earthquakes and hurricanes and tornadoes and all this shit, and lots of people die. Yeah. He sends plague, famine, pestilence, all the natural disasters, wipes out most of humanity in horrifying ways. So right away, not a fan. I'm not a big on genocide. I think it's a bad thing to do. And here's God doing it. That would actually be the third time be the second time he did it himself. No, pardon me, it is the third. It's the third time in the Bible that God committed genocides himself. It's not even close to the third time that he orders it. He orders it several times. But so I know God's super pro genocide in the Bible, but Revelations is one where he does it to like the whole damn world again after saying that he wouldn't do it. Sorry?
What's genocide?
In this case, it's just killing lots and lots and lots and lots of people all at once. That's a very loose usage of the word genocide. The actual definition of the word genocide is a little more specific. It deals with the intent to destroy a population, either in whole or in part, by killing them, creating conditions of life that cause their destruction, taking children away from them, preventing births within that population. Like it's actually fairly specific. In this case, I'm just talking about murdering most of humanity. So killing the whole population of the planet in part is what I would say. That's genocide. That's what he's doing.
Right.
So in this case, that's what Revelations is. The same way that's what the flood was, in the same way that's what he did to Egypt as well, by killing all the firstborns and all that whole shit. That was evil. That was just killing a lot of innocent people for no reason.
Thank God it didn't happen.
Yeah, thank goodness it's not real. And then in Revelations, he has a 1,000-year war with Satan. he has a 1,000-year war with Satan, isn't it? I think that's how long it is, which, unless Satan is actually an adversary for this guy, is ridiculous. If God's as powerful as Christians say that he is, there's no need for any of that to happen. He could snap his fingers and that would be too much effort to have it be, over with. But I guess that's what's necessary. Then he has this whole situation where people can choose to follow the devil and go to hell and all this stuff. Why? Why do that? Why not just forgive people of their sins and be kind and say, hey, I love you, and so I'm not going to allow you to. Why the fuck did he make hell in the first place? And then that brings us back to the first thing, which is that the first question I asked you is, why is he judging us? He's judging us because he made a group of unrealistic, completely ridiculous rules and then made us sick. We were born sinful, unable to fulfill the rules, and then we're punished for not fulfilling the rules, and now he's going to judge us for the stupid system that he set up that he easily could have changed at any time, but didn't because he's an asshole. So, the whole story of Revelation is just the final chapter of an entire book of God swinging his dick around just to prove how big and powerful he is and making his ego everybody else's problem. And and Revelation is like the pickle on top of that shit sandwich. It's the biggest way he could possibly do that. It just sucks.
Man. Well, yeah, Revelation sucks. You're right.
God sucks. Like, that's the thing, man. God is a big dick. Like the whole thing. Like, take the we mentioned a minute ago with the Pharaoh with pulling the Jews out of Egypt and all that thing. Have you read Exodus? Have you read that story?
I've listened a couple times now.
Okay. Read it. Go just check it out. It's not a long part of the book. Right. And the whole thing is, he does all the plagues, right? He sends the frogs, and water to blood and all this stuff. Do you know why he did that? It's because the Pharaoh refused to let the slaves go, which that never happened in the first place. But that's not the point. Like, the Pharaoh refused to let the slaves go, so God sends another plague. And then the next line says, the Pharaoh was convinced he wanted to let the slaves go, and so God hardened his heart so that he would not let the slaves go, and then he sends another plague. God interferes with the Pharaoh's free will so that he can continue showing off by torturing the innocent people of Egypt who have no control over the government and can't let the slaves go. And I think there are also several times where the people in Egypt are demanding the Pharaoh end slavery because God keeps punishing them. And then God comes and forces the Pharaoh to do something evil by keeping slaves so that he can continue punishing and killing people. And it all culminates with him killing every firstborn child in Egypt. It's all so that he can kill a bunch of babies. That's the end goal for God, is to murder thousands of babies who don't own. Did the babies own the fucking slaves? No, they're babies. And he kills all these babies so that finally he can then allow the Pharaoh to be convinced so that he can then lead Moses into the desert, lose him for a long time. The whole book of Judges is him putting the Jews back into slavery over and over and over. Intentionally, he puts them back as slaves because they disobey him in some way. And then they say, oh, I'm sorry, we'll be good now. And so he liberates them from slavery by murdering a bunch more people. And then they're bad. And so he makes them slaves again so he can murder more people. And then finally, they come to the promised land, and God tells Moses, hey, you've been leading them this whole time. You've been a good and faithful servant. You've done all these things for me. But if I feel like you shouldn't go in there, though, you've kind of just been a dick anyway, so fuck you. And Moses dies on the hill before he ever gets into the promised land that he's been fighting for eons to get to. What an asshole! This God is not a good person. He's a terrible, stupid person who makes terrible decisions and then punishes everybody else for his bad decisions. And the Bible is an awful, awful book full of immoral, terrible people. Oh, and by the way, speaking of fucking Moses, The burning bush, read that too, because Moses talks to God in the burning bush, and God's like, go tell people that you're my servant and that I'm going to free the Israelites. And so Moses goes to do that, and literally the next line is that God attacks Moses and tries to kill him, and the only thing that stops him is that I think it's his wife comes out and quickly gives him a circumcision and throws his foreskin on his feet. Literally, God's like, go, my child, go do my will. Fuck you! And he just like attacks him and starts killing. And the only thing that stops him is somebody cuts his dick. And he's like, oh, well, shit, now he's got his dick cut. I guess I'm not going to kill him anymore. What is this God? It's a madhouse, dude. Read the book. It's horrible. If you want to be an atheist, reading the Bible is a great way to get there.
Yep.
Sorry, I've been yelling for a minute. It's a terrible book.
Oh, you good, man?
Oh my gosh.
I guess just I don't know. I don't overlook it because I am still on a spiritual journey, I guess you could say. I guess I've tried to disprove it, man. So I looked into the Quran, and then I read the Satanic Bible, the Book of Mormon. Started that, was terrible. But it's like Jesus is mentioned in every religion. Why?
Not
What's
everyone.
so special about that guy, man?
Just those ones, because the Book of Mormon and the Quran are derivatives of Christianity.
Got you.
Yeah, so there is the Torah, and then from the Torah we got the Bible, and then from the Bible we got the Quran, the Book of Mormon, the whatever the hell the Jehovah's Witnesses use, and all those other ones. Those are all derivatives of that. So the big major religions are what we call Abrahamic, and yeah, they're all derivative of the same general story from around 2,000 years ago in Palestine. Some shit happened, and that's the story. There plenty of other religions on offer that don't mention Jesus, and they all have exactly as much evidence going for them.
Now, hey, now I've heard Aron Ra say this on the ethical teachings of Jesus predated Jesus back to Krishna, and then he said Krishna did everything Jesus did much better than Jesus did it. Can you kind of touch on that if you're familiar?
Can we touch on that tomorrow, Kyle, when you call back on Skeptalk?
That'll work, man.
Yeah,
hey, guys. Yeah, man. I appreciate your guys' time.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate you and your questions. They've been a lot of fun. Please do call us tomorrow and talk to Jesse and I some more, okay?
For sure, man. Hey, take care.
Thanks, buddy.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
All right. That was going to show up somewhere. You're probably going to...
Sorry.
Kid Haven's going to have to physically assault a toy about that.
I got excited. I'm sorry.
That's good. Are you kidding me? That was fire, bro.
Also, to the person in chat who says Israel, not Palestine, it wasn't Israel at the time. Even if you want to say, like, where do you
Canaan,
think
if you
things
want to be weird with it, but...
Yeah, like, if you're going to call me out on something, what a weird thing to... Oh, my glob. Also, I saw somebody in the chat while I was talking. We talked about genocide, and somebody put in there, while we're on the topic of genocide, free Palestine. Love that. Fuck yeah.
You love to see it.
You know what's funny? A little while ago, it was Kim Kardashian was on stage. And somebody asked her, like, why she doesn't talk about Palestine. So somebody yelled free Palestine in the crowd. I forgot what it was. And she just said, free everybody. And, like, she got a lot of heat for that. And I still think that was gross at the time. I think that was her dodge. But now, coming back around it when we're talking about it, actually, yeah. You know what? There's a lot of shit going on. Yeah. The fucking... Congo's got enough shit going on. Sudan's got enough shit going on. There's a fucking thing going on in Bangladesh right now. There's a thing, like, there's a lot of people need to be freed. Free everybody. Anyway, gosh. We'll see if we can get a caller call in and talk about fucking Palestine too. It'll be great. That'll be a fun one for us to do.
That's not polarizing. Let's go.
Yeah. Didn't you say so at the beginning of, I think it was during that call, you said something disparaging about Mormons, and you were like, that's going to get me in trouble with the Mormons. Sorry, guys. As if that's not the whole name of the game here.
So, my whole approach to this is I try and let people know that I am not their enemy in this, but rather their ally. Because I sincerely think if I had a chance to have coffee with everybody that's called in today, that they would leave if not questioning their belief structures just a little more, they would have a greater appreciation for people that do question their belief structures. That's my goal. And a lot of these guys, because what they're doing their best to defend something that's indefensible, and so these are the important. They're all asking the goddamn most important questions, and they're always trying to think their way out of a bubble. The guy that was the Jordan Peter Jackie was like, oh, but what if? Yeah, at the very. Yeah, we can disprove everything, but before time, the time before time and the space that doesn't exist within a space, what if there was a guy? And that's because these claims are so ridiculous. You have to get to these esoteric arguments just to hold on to a smidgen of faith. And that's where I want to live. I want to help people ask these questions honestly and sincerely and in a safe environment so they feel that it is safe for them to interrogate this within themselves. So I don't want to make enemies out of these people, because my ultimate goal is to make them ask the big, hard questions. And I think that's where we begin healing as a people.
You know what? That's one of the many, many, many reasons why I love hosting the shows with you, because I feel like you're the person that we bring on that's nicer than me. And that's great. That's the one. When I get approached in public, that's the one compliment. People are like, I really like that you're not just attacking people. You're always trying to bridge a gap. And I feel like you do that better than I do. And it's wonderful.
I don't know.
And so
I
love that shit.
Thank you.
You're amazing, Jesse Jerdak. Love you more. Stop it.
I will fight you.
Hey, if you want to see more of the bromance between Jesse Jerdak and I, check out Roll for Initiative and donate to Doctors Without Borders, who are helping around the world through many humanitarian crises, including the genocide in Palestine, which is going on right now. They're helping to ameliorate that by saving lives that need to be saved. With that, we're going to move on to Santiago. Pronouns he, him, calling in from Obliterated Rectum, who is deconstructing as a theist and has questions regarding his situation. Santiago, you are on the line with Jesse and Forrest. How are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. How about you guys? Can you hear me?
Good, buddy.
Really,
you sound good.
man.
Okay, cool. I had a headphone in, but I just wanted to make sure. I recently just broke a really huge stronghold that that the church has kind of had over me. I've been deconstructing for a while. I mean, it's been really thanks to you, Forrest, in particular. I know the other brother, but I apologize. But
Okay.
Thanks to you, Forrest, to Erika, Gets It Given. Dave Farina was actually the one that I really latched on to with his a lot of his debunks and just some of his stuff that he teaches about with organic chemistry just feels like algebra, and I'm terrible at math, so algebra is accurate. So it's been about a 3-4 year road at this point. But the main thing that still had on me was music, because I'm a huge musician. I love gospel music. I mean, but the politics got to be too much with the churches I've been playing at. And I just
also like gospel music sometimes. It's designed to sound good. There's a reason why it's popular. I still listen to there's a great song from this movie called Leap of Faith with Steve Martin, which you should watch, by the way. And it's I've been lonely, I've been cheated, I've been misunderstood, I've been washed up, I've been put down, told I'm no good, but with you I belong, 'cause you help me be strong. It's a great song. It's real funky and jazzy and good. I love it so much, and I'm like, fuck God, though.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically what it is, it's people who would otherwise be well-meaning and well-intentioned and maybe even well-wishing, but when you start to poke and prod at what is essentially the center of their existence, they become so defensive and immature, and it's really grating. And honestly, I really had to compartmentalize parts of myself in order to do it, and I just realized a couple weeks ago, I can't do this anymore. They were paying me to come play because people like how I sound, but the money wasn't worth it anymore. So I've been focusing on other things, and it just no, you guys have been so amazing and so helpful. I guess like I guess that is part of my question, like, because you said you still like listening to a little bit. I was going to say, like, y'all still listen to church music, like, since y'all been
Sometimes.
out of the church. But so obviously you do, but it's always it sounds like it's with the caveat of like, fuck God. So that's
Sometimes,
cool.
yeah. So like I still I still like the idea of some of the stuff that I used to believe in. I just don't believe in it anymore. And like, as far as like music is concerned, I said I like gospel because it's like funky and jazzy and cool. Sometimes I'm using like a lot of like Russian Orthodox chants for something that I'm working on right now because it gets me in the headspace and the vibe of something that I want to think about, and it's really cool. My wife, she was raised very Christian, and went to all sorts of church camps and things. And sometimes she'll still sing because it's just in her head and it's just on her heart and she wants to sing it because it's just a fun song to sing. And she'll be out there singing something and then she'll realize how crazy it sounds and start laughing at it. The other day, I've told this story before, but I remember when she was in the kitchen, she just starts screaming this song about being covered in the blood of Jesus or something like that. And like, just, the power in the blood. That's what it was. And she's like, comes in, she's like staring at me. She like walks in my office like, power in the blood. And she's like just screaming because it's just such a crazy, like when you think about what you're actually saying, it's a wild song. And so like we're laughing at it and having fun with it. But she still sings this stuff all the time because it's just something she grew up with and it matters to her. So that's fine. Is that like your main concern? Is that you're going to hold on to something that makes you smile and it's not atheisty enough?
No. Well, it's just, I mean, I guess it's like, for me, it's like, I don't really have a problem with that necessarily because, like, I play a lot of blues and jazz and R&B and stuff like that, which does have its roots in Black gospel in particular. But I know that there's pieces and bits of that that, like, I can still smile at and carry on. It's just, every once in a while, man, I'll be in the mood for some James Cleveland or some, old Black gospel cats, and I'll just be like, it just sounds
totally
good. Like
fine.
you said, it's funky.
So
yeah.
So what's the issue?
Well, I guess that's just, I don't know. I guess like I never would have pegged you as a guy, somebody who enjoys gospel, but since you said that most of your upbringing is pagan in particular, so because I did the pagan thing for a while too after I left the church initially and then came back later on, but I would never pegged you for that, but that's kind of one of my questions. So
one of my favorites is there's a group called the Dixie Hummingbirds, and they sing a song called Nobody's Fault, and it's so good. It's so good.
I'm going to jump real fast, Forrest. Is that okay?
Yeah, please, by all means.
All right.
I'm going to look up the song that Dixie Hummingbirds put in the chat.
I used to be a music pastor in a fairly large church, and I honestly I'm picking up what you're dropping a little bit because once I started deconverting, I didn't like revisiting the songs that I had been singing a long time, because it felt like this weird, like it almost felt like you're making out with your ex. And
it really does, man. It's a trip. You're right about that, man, for real.
Yeah, and so I am of a similar mindset up until very recently, and then I realized like I don't mind singing along with radio songs about girls kissing boys. I will sing along with like Taylor Swift or whatever all day long. I don't give a shit. And then I realized like I am not a pretty blonde lady thinking about kissing an NFL guy, but I'm singing along with the song. And at some point you're like, you don't have to relate personally to every song. And for me, that was actually very freeing because for a long time it felt bad to revisit these the songs of my past life, because like I was in the kitchen the other day and I started singing the first few bars of Trading My Sorrows, and I was making pancakes naked. And I was sitting there like with a spatula, I'm trading my sorrows, flipping a pancake. I'm trading my shame. I was like, oh, God damn it. I'm naked and I don't believe in any of this, but it just doesn't fucking matter, man. You can if the song's a banger, the song's a banger, and you don't need to feel bad about it. It's what you do with who you are going forward. Yeah, man.
I just put the link
fine,
to
no,
Nobody
I
Small by the
feel-
Dixie Hummingbirds in the chat. Everyone should listen to that. It's great.
Okay, no, it's funny. Like I don't really feel. It just feels weird. It doesn't like I don't need to relate to every song, because I sing a lot of songs when I'm playing out that like I don't have the lived experience of, but I really, like, as an artist, like I really try to put myself in that place, because I like to represent, learning how to access my emotions a little bit better has been a real joy, But that makes sense, man. I mean, I don't feel like I need to relate to every song. I mean, my partner, she listens to queer artists who sing about kissing boys, and some of them are pretty fun, man. You catch me in the car, being like, well, there's boys in the ocean, and it's just like whatever. It's fun. It's a good song, So I'm cool with that. I think the other question that I had is you probably get this all the time, you guys. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Like, I was thinking about like where I want to, because it's kind of like what you were saying earlier about how you feel free. I'm kind of the, like I learned about nihilism, and I learned there's like passive and active nihilism, and I'm definitely like an active nihilist. I feel like now like my canvas is truly blank, and I can put whatever I want on it. And I don't know, it just sounds weird, but like listening to you, listening to Erika and Forrest and Dave and even Aron, man, like Psycom has really like come into my orbit, and I really don't know a whole lot about it, but I'm the type of person where like I really try to, whatever creates the most empathy between people is where I'm at, whether we're talking about like when we're talking about like trying to build bridges, like you were talking about before. And I really feel like there is, especially in Black and Brown communities, there's a huge breakdown with science as it's presented, because it's the history that comes along with a lot of like Enlightenment age science, where a lot of Black and Brown folks were put under the ground in order, in what was considered, by Europeans the Enlightenment age. And, and I feel like there's a lot of resistance to it because we equate. Go ahead.
I was going to say, plus a lot of science progressed at their expense. The amount of people that were used as experiments. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, there's
so
a lot there, and like that's I think for me, just based on what you're saying, like it's all about moving forward, and sometimes there's some stuff that might still be painful or triggering or problematic for you, and that's fine. But like, just because you want to listen to the remix to Ignition doesn't mean that you support peeing on little girls. So just like, it's fine. It's R. Kelly can be a piece of shit, and you can enjoy music, and gospel can be cool, and you can not enjoy the religion, and you can enjoy the things from the religion that aren't the religion and be okay. As long as you're still on those, on the same path, on the same path of deconstruction, as long as you're still being cognizant and mindful about what you're doing and why, and you're not letting yourself getting sucked back in,
Yeah, absolutely. I feel you on that, man, for sure. But what I was getting at though is like, how did you get into Psycom? Because like I was saying, man, like I feel like there's a huge gap that needs to be bridged. And I feel like, a lot of, and I feel like if a lot of people really understood, like, I mean, I'm not saying that, because, obviously, when you're talking about large political shifts in mindset, you're not talking about presenting people with facts. You're talking about like redefining a narrative. And like, I really feel like, I don't know if I could ever be as cool as like the rest of you guys who do what you do, but like I really, like, I don't know, like, how did you get into Psycom? Because I'm really interested in that, man.
My first degree was in education. I worked as an informal educator for 10 years, and I just learned how to talk to a diverse group of people about complicated topics that should be very esoteric. The only thing I love more than learning science is teaching it. So it was a natural fit for me. It's not for everybody. I don't know, man. You got to find, you'll have to find your own way to do it. There is no one right way to do that. There are plenty of wrong ways.
Absolutely. I just wanted to pick your brain mostly.
Yeah, no, I don't have a solid, easy answer for you. Honestly, I got into it because it's been my dream since I was a little kid. It's all I've ever wanted to do. I grew up watching.
That's cool though, man.
People like Jeff Corwin and Carl Sagan and Steve Irwin and all these people, and I wanted to be like them when I grew up. And that's my whole job, is just trying to do that thing. But you'll find your own way to do it. I wish you all the best, though, Santiago, and I hope you call us back if you have any other comments or concerns about your deconstruction journey.
Yeah, no problem, man. Just one more thing. When you were talking about the DNA evidence and talking about because you Stephen Meyer, I was waiting for you to go into your Beard of Odin rant when you were talking about not being able to do DNA. You can't go forwards and you can't go backwards. Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've watched that and just died in the middle of work. So that's neither here nor there, but that's pretty hilarious.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. God, what a stupid fucking everything. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I haven't thought about that in a long time. That was just I can't even tell you where my brain was when I pooped that out. Anyway, Santiago, have an awesome rest of your day, man.
I gotta wonder what your neighbors think. All right, you too,
right?
Man.
Santiago, you're cool as heck, man.
What a nice dude. We've got 2 calls left, and we've got just enough time to take them. We're going to start with Brian, pronouns he, him, calling in from Tiny Xylophone. He's agnostic, who is currently questioning his faith, wants to know if we can walk him through why we believe everyone should abandon their faith in God. Brian, you were on the line.
Hello.
Jesse, how are you doing?
It's really, really good to talk to you guys. I am more familiar with Forrest. I'm sorry, Jesse.
That's okay, buddy.
It's really cool that I get to talk to you guys. I've been kind of looking forward to reaching out and talking to you guys. I've done it once before a few weeks ago. I am very fresh on my journey of deconstruction. So, yeah. I guess one of the things that I should say before we get into it, just to put my question into context. I'm a medical student, really excited to take care of patients one day. But one of the things that my school, a secular institution, teaches us about is cultural competency, respecting what other people believe, which of course I don't think anyone's going to question. But we also kind of touch upon the importance of faith in healing and the hope that people get from faith, and especially how important it is to dying patients.
Yeah.
And so I was wondering, because I've been hearing you guys talk to a lot of people, what your thoughts were on that.
Yeah, I would never go to a dying person in the hospital and be like, hey, surprise, heaven isn't real and this is it for you, dude. I would never, ever do that. And so when, I do talk about how I think that people should deconstruct and how I think that faith in God is harmful and all those things, there's also a certain point where if someone's believed this their whole life and it's the thing that's giving them comfort, that especially in such a scary and painful time, as being in a hospital for any reason, but especially towards the end of one's life, more power to them. I'm not going to make a fuss about it. It's, fuck, man, it sucks for everybody involved. But if somebody was dying in front of me and asked me to pray with them to give them comfort, I would do it. Because at the end of the day, what's more important is that this human being has some small amount of their suffering alleviated. That's more important than my fucking mission to try to help people, become atheists. That's not the case right then. That's not the point right then. It would be ridiculous for me to do that. So when you're talking about a medical standpoint, sensitivity to other people's faiths and belief systems is really important, because that's not the time nor the place to have a religious debate in a medical setting. It's just not. And if someone's coming into you as a Jehovah's Witness, you need to know that you need to be very careful if you're recommending a blood transfusion, or maybe just don't do that. and say, hey, dude,
Right.
here's what needs to happen. I understand you're not okay with that. Let's talk about alternatives. If someone comes in as a Muslim, they might have a problem if you want to recommend a porcine valve replacement. They don't want a pig heart in them.
Right.
And so, like, that's some shit to be considerate of. As far as people in death and dying, especially then, your job as a doctor is not to engage in a debate with them. It is to give them the best medical care that you know how, as long as they consent to it, and then leave the room. That is your job. So yeah, that's what I would say about all that. Jesse, do you have something different?
Yeah, I'll just jump in real briefly just to kind of parrot a lot of what you said. I feel like this is a nuanced thing. While, yes, one of my primary missions in life right now is to help people escape the dogma and abuse, especially of Abrahamic religions, because those are the ones I'm the most familiar with. I am not trying to actively convert my 80-year-old mom because I don't know. For one thing, it's just going to cause her a lot of undue trauma. I don't believe I will be successful because she's not interrogating or even capable of interrogating her belief structures in an honest and healthy way. So let's say I succeeded, it would cause undue psychological stress and harm to her. And I believe Dillahunty's the same way. He's got some parents that are getting up there, and he doesn't try and deconvert them. However, if I feel like, because here's why. Here's the crux of it, and the core of it is that I do believe that a life free of religious dogma is better, and that's why I want to help people deconstruct. However, that deconstruction process can be painful, and for some people it's longer than others. And if it's all the time they have left, then what am I really doing? So I help for the people that I think it will provide peace and joy and meaning for what's left of their life. Yes, I will help them or do my best to help them deconstruct. However, if it's just going to traumatize somebody for the little time that they have left, my mom knows I'm not a believer, but that's about it.
My mom does not.
Yeah.
That'll be fun. Conversation for another day. I would say that I've not considered myself agnostic for more than a few weeks, but I've been questioning for a very long time. I think that's sort of the story most people experience.
Yeah. You're on your journey, friend. Did you have any other questions for us? Did we answer those questions sufficiently?
Yes, I think that was a great one. I guess another one is more important for myself than my patients. That was my first concern. Was like, okay, what do I do when someone's trusting me with their health?
Yeah.
This next one, I guess it would be like, I hear a lot of people who are deconstructing, and they're talking about how they're having a really hard time getting over their fear of hell. But it's a little bit weird for me. As a Christian, one of the things that I was looking forward to was, like an eternity in heaven. This was like the promised reward if I can manage to stay faithful to God all my life. And now that it's like, wait a minute, is God even real? Like, then that means that all of the time that I have left on this earth is all the time that I have.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
How do you, especially Jesse, since you were a pastor, how do you like give up on that reward?
Because you just realize that whether I give up on it or not, it's not coming. And so, like I said, it's an uncomfortable process. It's a painful process. For me, it sure was. I mean, I had a couple of dark years about it. But eventually, on the other side of it, I promise you, I'm a happier man at the end of the day, because I am not beholden to a lot of problematic belief structures. I am not beholden to the fact that I have to apologize for a God that doesn't practice what he preaches. And there is joy in that. And then you begin to really value what matters. And then you begin to really value people that live lives that are outside of biblical precepts, that are good people. There are some wonderful people out there that the Bible would tell you to tie to the city gates and stone. And you're a doctor. Your first thing is to do no harm. And I got to tell you, that conflicts with Christianity right out the gate. So I think it's, while you are in the most uncomfortable point in the journey right now, it gets better. And I always like to bump recovering from religion. Have you heard of recoveringfromreligion.org?
I have, yes. I've checked them out.
Yeah, they're great people, and they're there for people like us who bear the scars of indoctrination from Abrahamic religions. And I really encourage you to, if you haven't already checked them out, to check them out, because I can tell that you're carrying a little bit of the same, like, man, I was banking everything on being in heaven, and now that's gone. And I'll tell you this too: even if you wanted to start believing in it again, I don't think you could, and that's a bummer.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's hard.
There's an awful lot that, like, I would love to continue doing if I could do it. Like, I have a small group that's starting up again this month that I don't think that I can really attend anymore. But yeah, it's definitely a lot of upfront costs, and I'm not really like seeing too much of like the distant reward.
Honestly, man, it makes every day that much more precious to know that it's the only time you get it. And I don't think you're in this position, but I have actually met Christians who have talked about how, like, if I was convinced there was no heaven, I would be a better person today. I would take better care of my family. I would spend more time with my loved ones, because I would know that I don't get them in heaven, but I know that I do, so it's fine. And like, I wish I didn't have to work as much, but at least I get to see them in heaven. You know what I mean? And so, like, I think, we talked on one of the last calls about finding meaning and all that stuff. That is part of the journey. That's part of the gambit, is now you get to decide what you're going to do with your life and what that means for you and for those around you. And at the end of the day, you're going to die. And that's scary as hell to think about, because not existing is a difficult concept to wrap your head around. I recommend thinking about what it was like before you were born, because you weren't alive then for billions of years. And you didn't notice. Wasn't a big deal. It'll be the same thing. And that's fucking strange that the second you close your eyes for the last time, that one moment and eternity are the same thing from your perception, because you have no more perception. That's nutty. But it's something to sit down and grapple with and mourn yourself. Take some time to deal with that and cope with that healthily. And then in your own time, find meaning for everything else that you want to do. Find meaning for the joy that your life brings to others. You said you want to be a doctor. Fuck, man, what a noble idea! What an incredibly kind and generous way to spend your life. You are going to be incredibly stressed out, and people are going to be better off for it. And I can tell you that it's likely that you will want to lean on religion as a crutch to give you something to hold on to when you're really, really, really just overworked and overburdened, and you've been dealing with death all day. And that might be very tempting. And I wish you all the best and all the strength in dealing with that. As if my wishes mean shit.
I could definitely,
I just encourage you to keep asking questions, is what I would say.
I could definitely use that crutch right now. I'm in this third year of medical school, which it's not as hard as the residency that comes after, but it's like one of the hardest years in medical school.
Yep.
What is sleep even?
Yeah, I get it. I've never been through medical school. I'm doing a second master's in biomed right now, but I can tell you, with the amount of work that I put myself through, and also just some shit that I've gone through in my own life, there have been plenty of times where I really, really wish there was a guy that had some magic powers that I could call upon. Would have been great, dude. Would have loved that. Right. But at the end of the day, just had to get tougher and had to go through it. And so, like, for you, I would just encourage you. I think you're on a great path already. If you're already asking questions and you're calling into shows like this, like, I think you're going to do fine. And I think that if you have any more questions, especially very specific ones like the ones you raised right now, I hope you call us back and ask, because I'd love to talk to you more.
I think that I will. I love calling you guys. What are you saying?
I said, call us back tomorrow. I would love to talk to you again. My heart is really going out to you, buddy, and I would love to be a resource for you if I can be. Okay.
Yeah, if I've got the time. What time are you guys calling tomorrow?
6 p.m. Central Standard Time is when the show starts, and it goes until it's done. This one has a cut time, but we have a cutoff time of a minute ago. But like,
yeah,
we this
for sure.
This one, the next one tomorrow goes until it's done.
Okay. Yeah, I very well might join on tomorrow. It'll be fun. I'll definitely tell you that I feel like my life is not lacking meaning, even without faith in God. So at least that's going for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you guys so much for being available for people like me.
Thank you.
Appreciate you, Brian.
Awesome. Have an awesome rest of your day. See you later.
All right, will do.
So I was a little distracted there at the very end because I just saw the messages from Arden saying, "Hey, hurry the fuck up. We're over the hour already." We're going to take this very last call. It's from Rogue Show. We're going to go incredibly fast, and we're going to end it in 2 minutes. Watch us do it. Rogue Show calling in from Slithering Colon is an atheist who wants to know if our morals come from Christianity in any sense. Societally, we base a lot of things on like Christian moral thinking, but at the end of the day, Christian moral thinking is not a new thing, and none of the stuff that is proposed by Christianity is particularly unique in either in a religious sense or in a cultural sense. And our country was not founded on Christianity, and the morals that we espouse in our culture specifically, I mentioned our country because different places around the world, different cultures, different moral systems, but most of them are all around the same idea. And the idea that the major tenets of moral thinking, don't steal, don't kill, blah, 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 had to come from Christianity is absurd. There's no way that humans went on for 198,000 years and then suddenly got some stone tablets that said, "Hey, by the way, don't murder." Yeah, we no, not in a direct sense and not in a real sense and not in any sense that matters. Do our morals come from Christianity? Jesse, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I'll touch on that real fast because I do get this question quite a bit as well, and I always like to return it with Christian morals don't come from Christianity. There have been holy texts and holy books in place long before Christianity existed that espoused very similar basic humanistic virtues. So, I mean, some of mine are compatible with what the Bible says, but they do not necessarily come from the Bible.
Yep, Rogue Show. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I just wanted to say real quick that this was like a sort of assertion that one of my friends made. I didn't really know if that was
your
true
friend
or
is
not.
wrong. No, your friend is very wrong.
Yeah, we'll come
Thank
to
you
your
for
house
waiting on the line for so long. Right. Thank you for waiting on the line so long. I'm sorry we had to make it so short.
That's all right.
Right,
the others were important. Bye.
See you later.
Appreciate you, buddy.
1 minute and 50 seconds. We pulled it off.
Beautiful. Thank you.
With that, this has been the Sunday show. It's the most Sunday show of all the shows that we do here on the line.
It's true.
Hosted by me and my dear, sweet, handsome friend, Jesse Jerdak. If you like me and Jesse Jerdak, especially together, check us out tomorrow on Skeptalk. You can see me in 2 hours on the Sunday show after dark with Matt. And make sure if you have like a couple of bucks in your bank account that you're like don't really need, like you don't really need that one more coffee or that one more sandwich or the whatever. Just like, hey, I could, I've got all my rent, I've got all my bills, I've got all my groceries, I've got all my fun money out of the way, and I also have like $3. You just a little something. Go donate to Doctors Without Borders because they're saving lives all around the world, and you can be a part of that. And it would really mean a lot to us if you would help out with that. It'd be really cool. Just a little donation would be great. I love promoting it here because the Line Network is notoriously very altruistic. So please donate to Doctors Without Borders. Head over to my channel, watch Roll for Initiative. And if you don't want to watch Roll for Initiative, I don't care. Just turn it on and donate to Doctors Without Borders. That's our show. We'll see you. I'll see you tonight. And Jesse and I will see you tomorrow. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks so much for being here. Have an awesome rest of your day and never stop learning. Goodbye. Thank you, Jesse, for being around.
Love you, buddy. Thanks, everybody.
Love you too, man. I'll see you later. Goodbye. Oh, guys, we got to wait for the whole thing. We got to wait for the whole thing. We just sit here.
Like when you say your goodbyes and walk to your cars that are parked next to each other.
Yeah, it's awkward. I'm sorry.